Pokémon, the trainer begins as a bounty hunter. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51. The game begins. After all, those present were either rich or noble, and they were all outstanding trainers. Although they were not at the level of the king trainers, the experience brought by their age made them have a better understanding of people. At this age, they could have such knowledge reserves, and it seemed that the elves were cultivated very well, and they were also very good people. Then the civilian status became a plus point at this time. They hurriedly told the strong chicken and stone balls who were playing to go back to the room directly, and asked Pidgeot to arrange himself. When he returned to the room, he began to organize his notes. In this way, in the next 2 days, they went to the battlefield in the morning to observe the opponent and watch the video, and went to fish for elves in the afternoon to cultivate his body and mind, cultivate his patience, and ask Dr. Yamanashi by the way. After 2 days, he gained a lot, and he got along with the fishing friends more and more happily. The 4th day of the departure of the Saint Anno. In the morning, Zaire opened his eyes, put on a black sleeveless top and sports shorts, brushed his teeth, and washed his face. He gave the 3 elves a simple meal, and after confirming that everything was correct, he set off to the 3rd deck. Today's match will be held in one of the venues there. When he walked to the side of the competition venue, some people were already waiting. Seeing ZHE, he smiled friendly. ZHE also responded with a smile. He had met some people in the past 2 days and became familiar with them. Most people were quite friendly. From them, he learned that Lacey seemed to have been taught a lesson by several elite trainers that night because of his remarks about using Pokémon as tools. It was normal. Most trainers regarded Pokémon as partners. Lacey's thoughts were fine if he thought about them himself, but he would definitely be taught a lesson if he spoke them out. ZHE also estimated that he was taught a lesson by others. Soon, as the players arrived and the audience gradually entered the venue to watch, the atmosphere of the entire venue began to become hot. People in this world have an almost fanatical pursuit of Pokémon battles. A person dressed as a host walked to the middle of the venue with a megaphone in his hand. Now, we are welcoming the annual Saint Anu exchange competition of the official gyms in the Kanto region. As in the past, we will see the battles and excellent performances of the young successors from various gyms in the next 2 days. The rules are the most basic battle rules, elimination system, and the elves can be replaced once. Without further ado, welcome our players to start the battle. The first to play are Hazincheng from Halen City Gym and Jins from PJ City Gym. Let's welcome them. The specific draw was drawn last night, 1-2-32. Number 1 versus Number 2, Number 3 versus Number 4, and so on, divided into 16 groups. These 16 groups are numbered, and the winner of Group 1 will also play against the winner of Group 2 to determine today's top 8. Tomorrow's draw will be held tonight. Calculating today, there are 24 games to play, and there is only one venue. Fortunately, it is only 2v2, and basically each game is over in more than 10 minutes. Including the rest time, it is estimated that it will be finished before dinner tonight. ZHE was thinking wildly while watching the 2 people in the game. His number was 21, which was relatively late. He would probably have to wait for a while. It should be around noon, just in time for a meal after the game. While thinking, the winner of the first group had been decided, and ZHE flapped his arms mechanically. There was no way. It was not that ZHE was not paying attention, but for him now, with 2 elite level Pokémon, he didn't need to think too much about tactical arrangements. He just had to rush in with strength, otherwise he would have wasted so much money. Although others also spent money, their efficiency was definitely not as good as his. He had 0, and 1 cent could be spent as 2 or even 3 cents. It was good enough for others to cultivate the materials themselves, but they might not be able to do that. However, ZHE knew that for the time being, he could only bully the young people with this point. In the more distant future, the money and efficiency of others would not be much lower than his. At that time, it would depend on the command level of the trainer. He has been working hard for this. After more than 2 hours of watching and studying the battles, I paid attention to a few important opponents. Finally, it was Tetsuya's turn to play. Next up are Tetsuya from Naibjim and Tetsuya from WW City Gym. Hearing the host's voice, Tetsuya's mind immediately flashed the information of his opponents. He slowly walked onto the trainer command platform on one side of the battlefield, and his opponent also stood steadily on the opposite side. Obviously, since Tetsuya took the stage, the noise on both sides of the viewing platform gradually became louder. I could vaguely hear people saying things like, "What a handsome guy. So cool. He has great muscles." Indeed, although there are basically no ugly people in this world, outstanding looks like Tetsuya that can rival all of you readers are rare. After Tetsuya took the stage, he blocked out the noise on both sides. After the referee announced the start, he and his opponent Tetsuya released their Pokémon at the same time. Go, Aishiwanko. Go, Ottery. Wuwei Gym mainly consists of general and fighting type Pokémons, including Teenan Pokémon, Ottery of normal level, and Apilang, Fast Punch Lang, of normal level close to elite. This is the information of the opponent. Teenan is of course also very clear about Tetsuya's strength and the most basic information. He knows that he is one of the 4 strongest people this time, and even the strongest among these 4 people, but it is impossible to admit defeat. The two spoke at the same time. Invisible rock ambush. Use mud throwing to reduce its field of vision. Turn into a circle and curl up. Be careful to avoid the eyes. The 2 Pokémons acted quickly. Aishiwanko shouted, and invisible rocks floated around the venue. No one knew the location except it. If you are not careful, the Pokémons who move forward and are replaced will be injured by these rocks. Then he picked up the mud from the venue and injected energy into it, forming mud and throwing it at Ottery. Doily curled up at the first moment and used the moves of turning into a circle and curling up at the same time while preventing the mud from splashing into his eyes. He improved his attack, defense and attention. Shrink the gravity field and shoot down the attack. ZHE also commanded calmly. Doily at this level has no means of long range attack, and curling up and turning into a circle is useless. The stone balls can be consumed by the distance. Teenan estimated the distance. In a normal battlefield, it is impossible to get close to the opponent in a flash of lightning. Move at high speed, circle around him, and be careful to avoid the rocks that shoot down the moves. With the stone balls as the center of the circle, the ground around it seemed to be slightly downward as if under pressure, and then it continued to condense rocks and throw them at Doily. Doily's body dodged the rock slightly and kept approaching. Suddenly, it seemed to be attacked by something, paused for a moment, and was immediately hit by the rocks that were shot down one after another. Please invest, collect, recommend, and vote for the monthly ticket. I want everything! Exclamation mark. Thanks to ZOS Hongsi for the 100 starting coins. Thanks to the Fat House holding the Fat House Water for the 500 starting coins. PS. The early stage is really economical, and the command will be exciting later. Chapter 52 Close Combat. It was the invisible rock. Teenan easily determined what caused this phenomenon, but there was no way. He had thought of this result when he ordered Doily to approach. Circling was also trying to avoid it, but if he didn't approach, he would just sit there and wait for death. Hold it, keep approaching. Teenan could only hope that the defense bonus brought by turning into a circle and curling up would allow Doily to hold on to the range where he could approach in a flash. Fortunately, Pokémon like Doily are also quite talented in speed. After resisting 2 invisible rocks and 5 or 6 rock attacks, it entered his attack range. Now, flash! Teenan shouted immediately. As long as he approaches the opponent and uses fighting skills, Shiwanzi will immediately lose his combat ability if he is it. Doily and his trainer also have a tacit understanding. Without hesitation, he glowed white and approached Shiwanzi. Tetsuya watched the wounded and panting Doily approaching Shiwanzi, and his face did not change at all. Full. Just as Doily stepped into the range of Aishiwanko's gravity skill, causing his body to lose a little balance and slow down a little, ZHE gave an order without thinking. Doily seemed to be hit by something, screamed, and lost his ability to fight. It was still the invisible rock. Aishiwanko placed some invisible rocks in the air within the gravity range. As long as the opponent enters this range, the invisible rocks will immediately attack him. With the blessing of gravity, the damage will be even higher. Doily itself is not a Pokémon that is good at defense and physical strength. It has been consumed so many times before, so it is naturally unable to hold on. Teenan gritted his teeth. Although he knew the gap was huge, it was too much for him not to even get close to Aishiwanko. He took back Doily and took out another Pokeball. Then it's up to you, Abelang. A boxer wearing a samurai armor similar to a skirt appeared on the field. Unfortunately, the number of invisible rocks was limited, and they were not placed in too many places on the opposite side. Abelang did not receive any nearby damage after coming out. Use High Speed Star. Teenan commanded. Abi is his initial Pokémon, not far from the elite level, and his skill combination is much better than that of Ottery, so it is impossible for ZHE to defeat Abi in the same way. Block it with rocks. ZHE commanded Aishigaki to control the rocks in front of him to block some of the high speed stars. Unfortunately, Abi's release speed and the flying speed of the skills were too fast, and a lot of damage still hit Aishigaki. The subsequent high speed stars hit the rocks in front of Aishigaki, stirring up a cloud of dust. Come back Aishigaki, go to Brichidius. ZHE also took this opportunity to replace the Pokémon. Training Aishigaki is one thing, but it's better to replace other Pokémon that can't be defeated. As for why the more restrained Pidgeot was not used, it was because it was unnecessary. Brichidius screamed after it appeared. The development far exceeded that of its peers, made many people watching nearby exclaim. A normal Brichichiton is 0.9 meters tall and weighs 20 kilograms. It should be very small against the 1.4 meters 50 kilogram Abi. Moreover, Tetsua's Abi is also a bit taller than the average, with a height of 1.5 meters. Even so, Tetsua's Brichichiton standing on the field looks no less sizable than Abi on the opposite side. The contestants on the sidelines all had a slight fluctuation in their rise. The data is not as obvious as it seems now, even though it has long been known that Tetsua's Brichichiton has been bred to be very outstanding. This intuitive manifestation of sizing is still very surprising. Tetsua certainly doesn't care what others think. Jet Flame. Brichichiton spits out a long column of fire and rushes towards Abi. It seems that it has become an unwritten rule for fire-type Pokémon to start the game with Jet Flame. All fire-type trainers like to use this skill to test the opponent, because it consumes less power, has greater power, is fast, and has a long distance, making it an extremely excellent starting skill. At this time, Abilang had already used his energy concentration during the gap, when Tetsua changed his Pokémon, increasing his concentration and destructive power. Vacuum Wave, break him up. Abilang raised his fist and sent out two transparent vacuum waves to meet the jet flames of the strong chicken. The jet flames immediately dissipated a lot after contacting the vacuum wave, but a lot of flames still hit Abilang. Teenan frowned. This was not what he had imagined, but fortunately the damage was not high. Move at high speed and fight it in close combat. Sonic Punch. Teenan didn't take it seriously and commanded Abilang to get close to Strong Chicken and prepare for close combat. Although the report said that the opponent's Strong Chicken was good at fighting, Teenan felt that the opponent could not be a match for a close combat expert like Abilang. What he was afraid of now was that the opponent would not fight with him in close combat, allowing Strong Chicken to attack him at a medium distance. Charge Flame Attack. We will also fight back with thunder and lightning punches. Of course, Tetsua was not afraid at all and directly commanded Strong Chicken to rush up and fight. Iron Man was also happy to hear the other party's command, and at the same time thought that civilians really don't know how to command without systematic training. The people off the field also shook their heads secretly. This choice is really a bit bad. The two Pokémon on the field are one with a light body and white fists, and the other with flames all over his body and electric currents around his claws, constantly approaching. Bang, bang, snap. Brichichikan hit Abilang without hesitation, making it lose its balance, and then slapped its opponent with its claws carrying electricity. How could Abilang, a fighting type Pokémon, be unable to fight back so easily? After losing its balance, it took advantage of the inertia of Brichichikan hitting itself, and a quick uppercut, after turning around hit Brichichikan's chin. Both Pokémons were not happy, and then they started to fight in close combat, punching and clawing without slacking off. The cheers on the sidelines became louder. This kind of fist-to-flesh hitting feeling will accelerate the secretion of adrenaline and make people more excited. Otherwise, there would not be so many people admiring fighting type Pokémon. They were just thinking that Tetsuya's choice was not good, but now it seems that this duel is too exciting. Unfortunately, it was Sharp Eyes, not Iron Fist, and Tetsuya was very calm when watching the battle on the field. But now it was Iron Man's face that began to change, because he found that Strong Chicken was not at a disadvantage in close combat. It can't be so exaggerated. Iron Man muttered to himself. Although there is a gap between ordinary and elite, the difference between the two Pokémons, one is about to break through, and the other has just broken through, is actually not particularly large. Moreover, Abilang is a fighting Pokémon, using fighting skills, but he can't beat the electric skills of Strong Chicken, which is mainly fire-based, in close combat. This is really a bit outrageous. Besides, dragging it out is not good for me. Iron Man was thinking so, and bad luck immediately favored him. Please invest, collect, recommend, and vote for the monthly ticket. I ask for everything! Exclamation mark. Please, for some skills, you can't see the specific usage, just by looking at the introduction. I slightly extended it according to my understanding and settings. Chapter 53 End of the battle. Tetsuya walked down the platform with a calm face. His opponent, Tetsuya, was in a very bad mood. If there was only a paralysis effect, he would accept it, but how come the burning came too? Has his luck been so bad? Just now, in the fight between the Thunder Fist of the Strong Chicken and the Sonic Fist of Abi unfortunately entered a paralyzed state. The entire elf's movement was greatly restricted. Tetsuya certainly would not let go of this state, and instead commanded Strong Chicken to use its own Flame Fist to increase the damage. Who knew that Abi would have more troubles, and after a few punches, claws, he fell into a burning state again. This time, he could not fight in close combat at all. From time to time, a few arcs of electricity flashed across Abi's body, and then his movements became stiff. After finally getting through it, a few more flames appeared on the burning parts of his body and burned him, and the pain made his reaction slower. What he faced was the continuous blows from Strong Chicken. With the last uppercut and 2 kicks, Abi fell directly and lost his ability to fight. Throughout the battle, apart from being slightly injured at the beginning, Strong Chicken only spent his physical strength afterwards. After leaving the game, Tetsuya handed the 2 Pokémons that had fought to Miss Joy, who was sent to treat them. They recovered in a short while. The host just announced at this time that the morning's game was temporarily over and the remaining 12 games would continue at 12:30 p.m. Tetsuya subconsciously calculated that it seemed that the end time of each game was a little faster than he thought. After returning to his room, he prepared lunch for himself and the Pokémons, and then he simply reviewed the morning's game. Ishimaru's performance surprised him. He used the invisible rock more skillfully than expected in the game. He also grasped the timing of the battle quite well. As for Strong Chicken, the intensity of the flame seemed to have reached the standard. Tetsuya used the Lightning Fist at the beginning with the idea of paralyzing the opponent and training Strong Chicken in close combat. After all, he really couldn't beat him. Strong Chicken could quickly distance itself with its acceleration characteristics and high-speed movement. However, the performance was good. Strong Chicken could barely fight with the fighting Pokémon in close combat, and was lucky enough to trigger the paralysis state. So later ZHE switched to using the Flame Fist, because since the paralysis state was triggered, Strong Chicken's winning rate in this battle was already very stable. In the case of the difference in strength, he wanted to see the probability of Strong Chicken triggering the burning effect. Obviously, the temperature and energy intensity of Strong Chicken's flames at this time were enough to quickly cause some Pokémon to fall into the burning state. As for others thinking that he was commanding blindly, ZHE said it didn't matter as long as his goal was achieved. Soon the 1-hour break passed, and he returned to the field. At this time, the first game of the afternoon had already begun. This time ZHE didn't go away directly, but watched more seriously. Because the one who was fighting on the field at this time was one of his possible opponents, Lacey. As for the information given by Ziogang, ZHE also felt that it was still necessary to combine the current observations on the scene to draw a conclusion. Soon Lacey's battle on the field ended. It must be said that, although Lacey gave him a bad first impression, he was indeed good at fighting and training. The tacit understanding between the Pokémon and the trainer is very high, and although the command is more like the hot-blooded school, it is very passionate. But he is also good at taking advantage of a little advantage, to seize the opportunity to expand the victory. In simple terms, he is unyielding, and fights to the death, when he has the advantage. There is nothing interesting in the next few battles. The quarterfinals also began. Tetsuya was lucky. He met an opponent with 2 ordinary level Pokémon, which was a very normal elimination. The other strong players basically avoided the grouping, except for the unlucky Reiji. He met one of the only 3 initial Pokémons among the heirs of the gym who reached the elite level. In the end, he defeated the opponent without any danger, but also exposed some things. The sniper characteristic Scorpion, it's a little stronger than the information, but it is far from the opponent of the strong chicken. The stone ball can also be consumed with the rock type skills first. However, it is also difficult for the stone ball to defeat the melting beast, so we need to prepare. As for the Moko and the information, leave it to Pidgeot, it's not a big problem. Tetsuya calculated. He felt that the biggest obstacle for him to win the championship was Lacey. The other 2 foreign players were strong but limited. The 2 elite level elves were just barely entering this realm. Their strength was still a little behind Lacey. He stretched his body. Although he thought so, ZHE still watched the dozen games in the afternoon. After all, knowing yourself and the enemy will ensure victory in 100 battles. ZHE was very cautious in choosing tactics. After sitting for so long, his body was a little tired. Tetsuya Tamaki, my recognized opponent, I hope we can have a peak battle tomorrow. A familiar voice with a slightly second-year student sounded behind him. He turned his head stiffly, and after ZHE roughly determined who was coming with the corner of his eyes, he did not reply, and walked out of the venue without looking back. My nemesis, why are you ignoring me? Are you afraid of my strength? No, I just simply think that your behavior of actively committing social suicide is too shameful. ZHE thought to himself, and then he accelerated madly to escape from the scene. Now he just wanted to get rid of the person behind him, Lacey, immediately. He didn't care about the other party's behavior of wanting to die, but he must not drag him into it. Lacey looked at Zaya's back as he seemed to be fleeing in embarrassment, and fell into deep thought. Are you trying to pretend to be afraid of me, so that I can relax my vigilance? A true trainer will never underestimate any opponent. But as expected of an opponent I recognize, you have actually started planning from now on. Lacey nodded slightly, indicating that he had learned something. Zaya, who had already returned to his room, was also relieved. He felt that Lacey adhered to the belief that, as long as I'm not embarrassed, others will be embarrassed, and did not think that there was anything wrong with his words at all. In a way, his heart was strong enough. Anyway, he could not do such a thing. Zaya felt a little numb when he thought about saying those words loudly in public. It seems that you have a good relationship with that Lacey, young man. Ha 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 ha. The voice of Asakura Chinatsu came from the balcony next to him, very gloating. Zaya rolled his eyes and said, no, I don't know him, not at all. By the way, is Uncle Chinatsu also at the scene? He was very confused. It's not just me, many people are. Ah ha ha ha, this game is more or less a boring program at a fixed time every year. Asakura Chinatsu paused. We also find it very interesting to see young people sweating on the field. Please invest, please collect, please recommend, please vote. I want anything. Exclamation mark. Thanks to Pikachu who is looking for the rainbow sea for the 500 starting coins. Thanks to for the 200 starting coins. Thanks to for the 1500 starting coins. PS. The third update will be at 9 PM. I will add more updates after the 3K collection milestone. I will see when I have more manuscripts saved. Chapter 54 A Fleeting Figure. Tetsuya was silent for a moment. Doesn't this mean that the way Reiji yelled at him so loudly just now was seen by many people he knew? Damn. The fake social death scene. People from Sinnoh were yelling in Kanto, the real social death scene. Local people from Kanto were yelled in front of a bunch of people they knew. He decided that, if he met Reiji, he would beat him, until he couldn't take care of himself. Asako Ichinatsu watched Tetsuya's changing expression with a smile. He also found it quite funny, and knew that at this time Tetsuya probably wanted to kill the kid named Reiji. It's great to be young. The uncle took a sip of red wine, and felt very comfortable in the sea breeze. Tetsuya said hello to Asako Ichinatsu, and went back to the room. He just wanted to make a perfect plan now, to let Reiji know what care is. Back in the room, he picked up a pen, and wrote something frantically on his notebook, with a hideous smile on Tetsuya's lips. He took the time to check his watch. He had just asked another staff member of the Nibtum to help him draw lots, and the results were out. In the semifinals, he would face the trainer of the Scyther. In the semifinals and finals, the opponent would be decided by the computer randomly. Otake Mitsutomu, the heir of the Sisu City Gym, had a common level B drill and an elite level Scyther. Tetsuya quickly recalled the name and information of his opponent in the semifinals from his memory. A very good opponent, he thought with a strange look on his face. As for why, is there any need to explain it? The attributes of Beedrill and Scyther can be said to be completely countered by his 3 Pokémon. Although attributes certainly cannot determine everything, it also depends on who is fighting whom. Even though the Sisu Gym is indeed famous for breeding Beedrills, the Beedrills it breeds have unique abilities. For example, some have extremely hard needles, some are far more toxic than their peers, or some simply have an advantage over their peers in speed or strength. As the heir, according to the data and his own investigation, the Beedrill in Otake Mitsutomu's hand has 2 abilities, speed and toxicity, which are far superior to those of its kind. However, under the suppression of strength, it is hard to imagine that the ordinary level Beedrill can get away with the hands of Brachayura. Not to mention Pidgeot, it is estimated that the Beedrill can't even see its tail gas. As for Scyther, it is actually the same result. Even Ishimaru can rely on his rock-type skills to cause some trouble to these 2 Pokémon. Of course, just in case, Tetsuya will still choose to send Brachayura and Pidgeot. After all, Ishimaru is just a child. It can be said that meeting Otake Mitsutomu is the best result of Tetsuya's draw, the easiest. Having said that, he despises the enemy strategically and pays attention to the enemy tactically. Tetsuya also made some very cautious preparations. Well, compared with the 3-sided paper for Reiji, he thinks that the preparation of 3 lines of words for Otake Mitsutomu is already a great respect for him. After a quiet night, Zaya walked to the guardrail of the 3rd deck, opened his arms, and felt the sunshine and salty sea breeze shining and brushing against his body. There was still about half an hour before his semi-final. He had prepared everything he needed, so he came out to relax in advance. As for the semi-final match with Otake Tomoto, the process was very boring. To put it simply, the strong chicken relied on fire skills to directly defeat 2 people, and Pidgeot didn't even have a chance to play. It was really miserable. There were only 7 games in total today. Even if the 15-minute break between each game was counted, the overall time was much more generous than yesterday. He finally understood what Zyanagang meant by the exchange between the younger generations. It was estimated that in front of those big guys, they only cared about the results of the game, so that they could brag about it when they were bored. After all, the game was a bit shabby yesterday, and it was normal today. Zaya secretly complained. If he didn't know that this game was an exchange between 32 official gyms, he would have thought it was held by some unknown small company. Only one venue is used for the competition, and you have to rush to enter the quarterfinals. It's not a good thing. Fortunately, the organizers showed their generosity today and directly reserved the 3rd floor for the battle. It will be open to the public only after the competition. Otherwise, except for the contestants, everyone else can only enter as spectators. As for whether other trainers have any opinions, you can ignore them if you have any opinions. Spreading hands, it's just that tough. After all, only a few trainers have opinions. Those who come to the St. Anu for vacation are either rich or noble, or they are trainers with good strength. Most people are also aware of the annual St. Anu exchange meeting of the Kanto Gym. Of course, they are happy to watch the competition of the top 8. After all, it doesn't matter if you miss a day of fighting. You are here for vacation. It's also a very good thing to watch the battles of the descendants of each gym and learn something from it. The reason why a formal gym can become a formal gym is that in addition to strength, it must also be special in other aspects. At this time, a fleeting figure on the deck below caught Tetsua's attention. That seems to be Sharona. ZHE was not sure, although he was a diehard fan of Bakeiji in his previous life, a fan of her appearance, a fan of her strength, and so on. But the distance was too far, and she disappeared around the corner in an instant, so he didn't see it clearly. He only saw part of her look and her long iconic blonde hair. However, there are many people with long blonde hair in this world, and I guess Sharona should still be training hard to improve her strength at this time. After all, she was a woman who won the Sinnoh championship in her 20s. ZHE smiled and shook his head, probably because he saw it wrong. He looked at the time, and it was almost time for him to enter the game, so ZHE walked into the venue. The two players in the last semi-final match in the venue were still fighting, but according to the big screen, this was the second Pokémon for both of them. Looking at the Pokémon on the field panting, it was estimated that the winner would be decided soon. Charmer, use the last jet of flames. Wrist strength, get out of the way. ZHE was thinking, as the last instructions from both sides sounded. The wrist strength of the weaker side immediately lost its ability to fight. Regarding the last trainer's command to the exhausted Armstrong to dodge, Zaya just wanted to say that you are not Zaozi. Do you really think that the rejuvenating roar is applicable to everyone? If it were him, he would choose to gamble with the see-through. If he succeeds in defending, he can hold on for a while longer. It is normal to see through or not, at least it is more normal than the unrealistic dodge. Of course, it is also possible that the Armstrong cannot see through at this time. After all, this skill is relatively difficult to learn. Most people will use this trick when they are powerful or super powerful. As the break time passed, the host's voice sounded. Next, please invite our 4 players to come on stage to draw the opponents for the semi-finals. Zaya slowly walked onto the stage, and there were 3 other figures on stage with him. Please invest, collect, recommend, and vote for the monthly ticket. I want everything! Exclamation mark. Thank you to the book friend 20210406211530991 for the reward of 100 starting coins. Thank you to for the reward of 500 starting coins. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55, 3v3 Battle. The 3 figures were Eiji, who represented the Cerulean Gym, Hayata, who represented the Golden Gym, and Kageyama, who represented the Red Lotus Gym. They were the strongest 4 people who represented the gym instead of the heirs. How should I put it? It was hard not to think that the draw before this had been rigged. The other 3 probably thought so too, and their faces were somewhat strange. Because the 4 of them were perfectly staggered in the semi-finals, Tetsuya and Hayata faced the remaining 2 gym heirs with an elite level Pokémon. Reiji and Kageyama were luckier and faced 2 players with ordinary level Pokémon. But this was not something unacceptable. After all, it was good for them not to meet the opponent before the semi-finals. At least they didn't have to worry about being eliminated early. Otherwise, the ratings of their respective gyms would decline. And looking at the spectators watching the game around him, Tetsuya felt that this exchange meeting was also a way for the Kanto gym to show its reserve strength in a sense. If the strength of the top 4 is relatively weak, they will not be able to get away with it, even if there is only one person who is not good enough. As the 4 people came on stage, the cheers of the surrounding audience became louder. After watching the semi-finals, they naturally knew that the strength of the 4 people above was the best among their peers, and they also had further expectations for the competition. Most of the cheers can be heard faintly from many girls, and the content is basically the black sleeveless boy is so handsome. Yeah, the other 3 look so. There was even a rough man's voice. The black sleeveless boy, do you want to exercise with me? Reiji, Shunta, and Kageyama are also very sharp, and can of course hear the audiences shouting. When they heard the girl's voice, they looked at Zaya in a black sleeveless shirt with envy and jealousy. After hearing the man's voice, his eyes were full of self-pity. Zaya just turned a blind eye and turned a deaf ear. His only request now is that Reiji must not drag him to social death. He had already seen a group of people sitting and watching him, including Uncle Chinatsu. Fortunately, Reiji seemed to know the situation, so he didn't do anything out of line. After drawing the lot and walking off the stage, Tetsuya breathed a sigh of relief. Now, please welcome Tetsuya Tamaki from Nibichim and Keiji Ayama from Gunjim. Yes, Tetsuya drew the first match with Keiji Ayama, and Reiji had to deal with Hayata. After climbing onto the command platform, at the referee's command, the two threw Pokeballs at the same time. Go, Tyrannosaurus. Go, Frog. In unison, neither side chose to release their weaker Pokémon in the first match, but chose to use the stronger one. Flame. Water gun. Very synchronized and plain commands. Although it is called a water gun, in fact, the elite level water type frog is no weaker than an ordinary water cannon, just by looking at its thickness. The two Pokémons, one water and one fire, sprayed flames and water columns that collided in the middle of the field. Steam immediately filled the field. Get out of the way, Keiji Ayama commanded, his face becoming more serious. He didn't expect that, with similar levels and superior attributes, the water gun of Frog couldn't resist the jet of flames from Brachichido. In the middle of the field, a red column of fire could be seen faintly pressing towards Frog. Hearing the trainer's command, Frog withdrew its continuous output of water gun and quickly moved away. In the next second, Brachichido's jet of flames hit the place where it had just stopped. It was a bit tricky. Keiji Ayama found that the strength of the opposing Brachichido was a little beyond his imagination. Just from the information in the previous battles, it was impossible to tell that this Brachichido was so strong in fire in addition to fighting. The proficiency of the skills and the quality of the energy were actually better than his own Frog. Move at high speed, spray flames. The opponent was thinking, and Tetsuya didn't give him too much time. Seeing Frog dodge away, he immediately gave the next command. Brachitred used high-speed movement to move quickly in the field, and from time to time, it shot out pillars of fire from its mouth to attack Frog. Frog could only fight and retreat without the command of its trainer. While frantically dodging, it occasionally used a water gun to disperse some of the flames to avoid damage. Even so, Frog was hit several times. Although the fire damage was not great for it, it was still quite uncomfortable. Big fire. Seeing Brachitred gradually approaching Frog, Tetsuya ordered again. Hold it, use pray for rain. Keiji Ayama's face was as dark as ink. He knew that he had made a mistake and couldn't let Brachitred get so close. At the current distance, Frog couldn't avoid big fire at all, and it was a bit too late to use water wave. So he simply gritted his teeth and let Frog resist the damage of big fire and use pray for rain. After all, even if the water type Frog was damaged by big fire, it would not be too serious. On the contrary, once pray for rain is used, the opponent's 3 Pokémon will be restricted for a certain period of time. A flash of lightning, followed by a thunder punch. Tetsuya was a little surprised by the opponent's action. From his point of view, the best way was to let the mosquito frog retreat while accumulating the water wave, which could most likely resist the big fire. Of course, there was nothing wrong with Keiji Ayama's approach, and it was even within Tetsuya's judgment and budget. He naturally had a way to deal with it. A flash of white light flashed on the body of the strong chicken, and the already extremely fast speed under the dual blessing of high speed movement and acceleration characteristics was further improved. In an instant, it followed behind the big fire and shortened the distance between itself and the mosquito frog. The arcs on its claws flashed, and it struck the mosquito frog that was about to resist the big fire and pray for rain. Keiji Ayama was panicked. He knew that Tetsuya would take this opportunity to command the strong chicken to get close to the mosquito frog, because the strong chicken with the thunder punch was obviously more advantageous than the mosquito frog with only the freezing punch in close combat. But he never expected that the speed of the strong chicken was so fast, beyond his imagination. Damn, a talent above the king, an acceleration characteristic. Keiji Ayama quickly realized it. This was not in the basic information provided, and it was not even visible in the previous battle. He was an excellent trainer after all, otherwise he would not have been selected by Zybo of the Red Lotus Gym for investment. If he could not see such an obvious thing, it would be a waste of his efforts on the road to becoming a trainer. But it was too late. When the mosquito frog resisted the big fire and just used the prayer for rain, the strong chicken had already arrived beside it. With the stiffness time just after the prayer for rain was used up, even though Kageyama shouted the command to dodge in an instant, the strong chicken's claws with electric current hit the body of the mosquito frog crazily. The mosquito frog screamed several times in a row. Please invest, please collect, please recommend, please vote for the monthly ticket. I want everything! Exclamation mark. Happy Dragon Boat Festival. Thank you for the 100 starting coins rewarded by the bear carrying teddy bear. Thank you for the 100 starting coins rewarded by the MT after all. Chapter 56. Continuing the fight. Under the attack of the attribute restraining skill of Thunder Punch, and the strength of Brachimeat far exceeding that of its kind, Frog was beaten back repeatedly in the rain. Hold on, Frog, hit it back with Megaton Punch. Kageyama shouted at Frog anxiously. Kick from the bottom, completely destroy the center of gravity. Tetsuya ordered. Ever since Kageyama was forced to make a mistake, because he didn't know the acceleration characteristics of Brachimeat, and let Brachimeat get close to Frog, he knew that he had won the first game. He had expected Kageyama's command. The two Pokémon responded differently to the command of their respective trainers. After being attacked by Brachimeat's Thunder Punch, Frog's body tilted back slightly due to the force of the attack, and its fist slowly lit up white light, ready to use Megaton Punch. Brachimeat half crouched after the hit, and quickly used its long legs to kick Frog from the bottom. Normal kicks from the lower body would not be able to trip the Frog, at least a special kicking move would be needed. After all, although the strength of the chicken is not small, the Frog is also known for its strength, and the most it can do is slightly damage the center of gravity and reduce its speed. However, the Frog was hit by the lightning punch at this time, and wanted to use the force to lean back slightly to avoid the damage, and by the way, charge up to use a million-ton punch. The center of gravity was already unstable, and the kick from the lower body by the chicken, aimed at the foot, completely lost the center of gravity, and the body fell to the ground behind. Bang! The white light accumulated in the Frog's hand also dissipated, and the million-ton punch was interrupted. The last lightning punch. Tetsuya, of course, chose to beat the Frog. Before Kageyama could react, the lightning punch of the chicken had already hit the Frog. The Frog's eyes immediately became the same as the pattern on its belly, and it lost its ability to fight. Come back, Frog. Kageyama shook his head, knowing that this was purely his own mistake. Otherwise, although the result might not have changed, at least the strong chicken would not have won so easily. The post-match review is a matter for the post-match. Now let's think about the opponent in front of us. Kageyama focused his attention and sent out his next Pokémon. Go, Soldier. Tetsuya looked at the second Pokémon released by Kageyama with a strange expression. Although he knew it a long time ago, it was still very strange. Why did Zybo take a fancy to you, who mostly uses water? After all, he still couldn't restrain his curiosity and asked Kageyama from a distance. Kageyama shrugged and spread his hands, indicating that he didn't know why. I was also curious, but Zybo didn't tell me. By the way, does Zybo really like to make riddles so much? Yes, he does it every day. The two of them talk to each other across the battlefield. Please start the battle, 2 players. The referee saw that the two of them were actually chatting, and also urged them. Even though some verbal interference is not prohibited in the official competition, it is better to forget about chatting during the small competition at this moment, as we have to hurry. Tetsuya frowned and watched the rain falling continuously in the venue, with no intention of stopping immediately. Rainfall characteristics, not sharp eyes, TSK, it's a waste of time. The characteristics of the elves are not in the information. In the previous competitions, Kageyama did not use the gull to fight. He used another ordinary level elf and the mosquito frog to solve the problem. So Tetsuya's purpose of communicating with Kageyama at the beginning was on the one hand out of curiosity about Zybo, and on the other hand, He wanted to delay until the rain praying time of the mosquito frog was over, and on the other hand, he also wanted to confirm the characteristics of the gull. After confirmation, it is estimated that the strong chicken is more dangerous. Water wave. Kageyama raised the corner of his mouth. Of course, he knew that Tetsuya was trying to delay time. But for him who knew the characteristics of the gull, the longer the time, the more disadvantageous it would be for the fire type strong chicken. The spirit of the strong chicken on a rainy day is not so good. Kageyama can already see that the strong chicken is a little tired. The gull gathered a large wave of water and rushed towards the brooding. Tetsuya's expression remained unchanged. Come back, brooding. Go, Pidgeot. A few seconds before the wave of water was about to hit brooding, Tetsuya successfully took back brooding and sent out Pidgeot. In a 3v3 match, each person has one chance to change Pokémon. TSK. Kageyama curled his lips in annoyance. He knew that the opponent would not let him win so easily, but he was still very unhappy. There was nothing he could do. Who made him lose the first game because of his mistakes. He couldn't change ordinary level Pokémon to play. Beep. As soon as Pidgeot appeared, it let out a long cry to show its majesty, and then its feathers were wetted by the rain. The gull was a little stunned when he saw the Pidgeot, which was almost twice its size. No, it did encounter Pidgeot before, but this Pidgeot was a little too big. Irregular water gun burst. It was stunned, but its trainer was very sober. Kageyama was not surprised by Tetsuya's well-developed Pidgeot. He understood that the opponent probably had a very high talent in breeding, so every Pokémon was bred to perfection at this stage. Unlike them, there were some shortcomings, but the gap between them would not be as big as it is now. After all, when it comes to the same level above the king level, everyone's breeding is almost the same. It can only be said that who has a stronger command. Even the champion qualification can only be said to have a slight advantage at this stage. He thought so. After all, his talent is also very high, otherwise Zabo would not look down on him, but it can only be said that he thought too much. As for why he didn't continue to use the water wave, even the normal speed of Pidgeot could dodge the attack of the water wave in the air, not to mention that this Pidgeot was obviously not slow at first glance. Kageyama would not be stupid enough to think that this guy would be slower because of his larger size. Even the strong chicken could probably dodge it in unfavorable weather, but the opponent felt that there was no need to take it back. Back on the battlefield, after hearing the command, the big owl subconsciously spit out several powerful water jets and quickly went towards the Pidgeot. Dodge with a flash of lightning, and the shadow clones will attack with wings. Tetsuya commanded casually. Pidgeot's strength can be said to be unique in this competition, so he was not worried at all. Sure enough, even though the speed of the water gun was very fast, Pidgeot was faster. With a flash of white light on its body, Pidgeot flew in the air and flexibly dodged the water gun coming towards it. While approaching the gull at a high speed, Pidgeot split into shadow clones, giving people the feeling that it was so fast that after images appeared, I saw more than a dozen Pidgeots in the air with white light that meant gathering energy on their wings, and they rushed towards the gulls one after another. Hold on. This Pidgeot was too fast. Kageyama gritted his teeth. He had no time to use other skills to resist. He could only command and pray that the gulls could quickly use the hold after using the water gun. And this hold must be successful, otherwise it is estimated that Pidgeot will follow with a series of light speed attacks. Please invest, please collect, please recommend, and please vote. I ask for anything! Exclamation mark. Happy Dragon Boat Festival. Thanks to Hunpodo and Zuaniwan for the 100 starting coins. PS. There will be no Chapter 57 semi-finals. Fortunately, although the success rate of continuous use of protection skills is not high, the probability of successful use for the first time in a battle is still very high. When Pidgeot was about to attack the gull, a green light shield appeared on its body and surrounded its body, and the protection skill was successfully used. The shadows split by Pidgeot passed through one after another. But it was not over yet. Follow the trend and return. Tetsuya's continuous fierce attacks obviously caught Kageyama off guard. He couldn't even accurately find Pidgeot's current location, let alone judge which direction to let the gull defend. As for the rain passing through the shadow clone, Kageyama said that he couldn't see it clearly in such heavy rain. Then he didn't care, gritted his teeth and said, use the tide whirlpool and wrap yourself. If you don't know where the opponent is, just attack yourself. Anyway, the gull itself has water attributes, and the damage it receives is far less than that of Pidgeot. The gull was surrounded by Pidgeot and its clones on the field. Pidgeot calmly attacked from below with several phantom clones, slightly touching the protective skill of the gull, causing the protective shield to disappear from the gull. As Tetsuya issued the command of the swallow return, a spectacular scene appeared. All the Pidgeots on all sides of the gull were covered by the white light of the swallow return skill. With the gull as the center point, more than a dozen huge Pidgeots spread out at a rapid speed and attacked it in different postures. Some Pidgeots flew in the opposite direction for a distance, drew a circular arc in the air, turned 180 degrees and headed towards the gull. Some Pidgeots dived down rapidly after flying high in the sky, and some even crossed each other directly, turning their bodies in a sideways flying posture to attack the gull from both sides. At the same time, the gull was not idle either. Taking advantage of the short time when Pidgeot's swallow return was charging, it also began to charge and create a tidal vortex. The fountain in its mouth was just a small water column at first, but it began to grow wildly in an instant and kept rotating clockwise. It was not until the water column became a whirlpool, nearly 5 or 6 times larger than the size of the gull, that the gull stopped charging. Because at this time, the first Pidgeot had already hit it with the white light of the swallow. Fortunately, it was just a shadow clone, not a physical entity, so the tide was not interrupted, and Kageyama was relieved. The gull controlled the tide to wrap itself up, and inevitably suffered damage from its own skills. After all, the whirlpool is not a tornado. The whirlpool in the center is still spinning very strongly, and the only small safe space is not enough for the gull to escape. But the only problem is that the wrapped gull cannot observe the opponent's movements, and even the instructions of its trainer are a little vague. But the gull can only hold on and wait for the arrival of the Pidgeot's attack. Outside the whirlpool, Kageyama looked at the situation on the field with an ugly face. The game did not go on as he imagined. He thought that this method could eliminate the shadow clones of Pidgeot in a large area. Pidgeot's main body must rush in to attack the gulls. During this period, even if Pidgeot carried energy and passed through the entire vortex at a super fast speed, it would inevitably suffer considerable damage. Moreover, the power of the vortex would make Pidgeot lose some of his balance, and it might be difficult for him to enter the center to attack the gulls. However, the former was correct. One after another, Pidgeots rushed towards the vortex skill, and one after another disappeared into thin air. However, Pidgeot's main body did not rush in to attack the gulls as he thought, but after using the swallow return, it flashed past the edge of the vortex. Pidgeot used the energy of the swallow return to consume part of the power of the vortex, and then got rid of the influence of the vortex on itself at the edge, and flew out again. It quietly stayed in the air in the distance, staring at the gulls in the vortex. After a while, the vortex gradually dissipated, and the exhausted figure of the gulls was vaguely revealed. Tetsuya's eyes flashed, and he seized this opportunity to command Pidgeot to attack. Destruction Beam. Kageyama knew that the opponent would not let him go at this point, so he gave the command at the same time. However, he was already completely at a disadvantage on the field. The physical strength of the gull had been severely consumed by the whirlpool he used. In terms of speed, he was no match for Pidgeot, and they could only consume each other from a long distance, which was very disadvantageous to him. So he decided to just take a gamble. Judging from the distance between the two elves, the charging time of the destruction beam was enough to complete before the opponent used skills to attack him. Judging from the attack speed of the destruction beam, even Pidgeot could not dodge it. But if Pidgeot could not lose his combat ability, then at this level, the stiffness time after the use of the destruction beam was enough for the opponent to kill the gull 4 or 5 times. Damn, I actually have to rely on luck to decide the outcome. Kageyama knew that this kind of gamble in the elf battle was tantamount to suicide, but now he had to do this, based on his judgment of the situation on the field. But he was lucky that the opponent used air slash, so his idea would probably succeed this time. Tetsuya heard Kageyama's command and thought it was not good. He had never thought that this level of gull could actually destroy the deathlight. He was still thinking of using air slash to decide the outcome directly, but he made a mistake. But it was too late now. He commanded with the mentality of trying his best, use the stand immediately. Of course, Pidgeot would defend, but Tetsuya was unwilling to gamble on this probability. Even if the use of the stand consumed a lot of physical strength, it was better than losing the ability to fight directly if the stand failed. The moment Pidgeot heard air slash, his body was suspended in the air, his wings closed to accumulate power, and he swung his wings to cut out a series of air blades. A ball of yellow light with extremely obvious energy fluctuations appeared in the mouth of the gull on the opposite side, which had been accumulating power for a long time. It was not until the air slash had flown nearly 2/3 of the field that the gull aimed at Pidgeot and fired it. Boom. A yellow beam of light passed through the field, completely destroying the air blade slashed by Pidgeot, and rushed towards Pidgeot with its power intact. At this time, Pidgeot had just recovered from the imbalanced state after using the air slash. In less than a blink of an eye, the destruction ray was in front of it. Pop. Just when Kageyama was ecstatic that the destruction ray hit Pidgeot, Pidgeot suddenly disappeared completely after enduring the destruction ray for a moment. Well done. Tetsuya cheered. Kageyama on the opposite side also changed his face immediately. It often takes only a second, or even less, to go from extreme happiness to extreme sadness. You know, the power of the destruction ray is not enough to destroy Pidgeot without leaving any residue. This can only mean that Pidgeot successfully used a stand at the last moment and avoided the attack. After all, the stand has a certain defensive ability, so it is normal that it can block for a while. Sure enough, as the beam of light slowly dissipated, a panting but unscathed Pidgeot appeared not far away. Parrot. Of course, we have to take advantage of the stiff time and fight back. Tetsuya commanded Pidgeot to use Parrot immediately and use Destruction Ray to fight back. A quick battle. The next Pokémon will be handed over to Brachiton. At this time, the Sable was still in a state of stiffness. Kageyama could only watch Pidgeot charge up, and then charge up again, and then spray a beam of light at the Sable, which was still standing there. Due to the previous physical exhaustion, after being hit by Pidgeot's unskilled Destruction Ray, the Sable also fell to the ground and lost its ability to fight. Come back, Sable, go, Pony, use Jet Flame. Kageyama knew that victory had left him, but he couldn't end this battle like this, otherwise it would be too embarrassing. It happened that the rain had stopped at this time. He hurriedly took back the Sable and released the normal level Pony to give Pidgeot a heavy blow. Beep! Pidgeot screamed in pain. At this time, Pidgeot was also unable to move, and Tetsuya could only let the little brooding horse consume Pidgeot's already limited physical strength. Yusu. He wanted to struggle a little more, to let Pidgeot fall to the ground and recover. Seeing that Pidgeot had broken free of the stiffness and flew downwards, Kageyama certainly would not let Tetsuya achieve his goal. The longer the night, the more dreams there are. Charge Flame Attack. The little brooding horse was covered with flames and ran quickly on the ground. After getting close, the little brooding horse jumped up and used its body with high temperature flames to hit Pidgeot. Beep! Pidgeot was hit and flew backwards. After falling to the ground and screaming, he lost his ability to fight. He took out the Pokeball to retrieve Pidgeot. Good job, it's my mistake, Tetsuya said to Pidgeot in the Pokeball. At the same time, he threw another Pokeball. Then, go, Brute. I'll leave it to you. Chap. After being rained on for a while, Brute, who still seemed to be in a bad mood, appeared on the field. Fortunately, the rainy weather caused by the praying for rain and the rainfall characteristics has ended. Otherwise, it would be too embarrassing and uncomfortable for two fire-type elves to fight in the rain. But now it is not much better. Kageyama's little fire horse has the fire-inducing characteristic, which is too advantageous in the fire-type civil war. The way for the strong chicken to win is to start with close combat. Fortunately, the strong chicken is in a leading position in terms of level and other aspects. Move at high speed and keep distance. It is still a familiar start. Considering the fire-inducing characteristic of the opponent's little fire horse, ZHE did not choose to use the jet of flame to greet, but used high-speed movement to make the acceleration characteristic whose blessing time has passed in the last game start to work again. We will also rush up with high speed movement, and the mountain will crush the top. Of course, Kageyama can't just watch the speed of the strong chicken pick up again. I didn't know about the acceleration characteristic before, and now that I know it, how could I make the same mistake again? The little fire horse is good at speed and running, and Kageyama commanded it to rush towards the strong chicken. Please invest, collect, recommend, and vote for the monthly ticket. I want everything! Exclamation mark. Thanks to the humble civilians, who have no money, to reward for the 100 Kidian coins. Thanks to Lengju12 for the 2000 Kidian coins. Thanks to Fing's Hanxi Anapang for the 1500 Kidian coins. PS. I was a little confused when writing this chapter. 3k plus. I will update to chapters of 3k, which is considered as the extra chapter for the 3000 collection milestone. Then I calculated that the cumulative rewards have reached 10,000 and the monthly tickets have reached 100, so I still owe 2 extra chapters, plus there will be one more chapter for the 5,000 collection milestone today. I can't stand it anymore. I updated for a day and I actually have an extra task of 6,000 words. It was unexpected. Chapter 58 Review. Use bounds. Of course, Tetsuya would not choose to fight with Blaziken. It's not that he can't fight, but there is no need. Blaziken is indeed fast on the ground, but there is a flaw. That is not a flaw. It can't fly. Seeing Blaziken approaching him gradually, Brachiosaurus also obeyed his trainer's command. He squatted slightly with his feet, and then jumped into the air with a bounce. Although he didn't have the terrifying jumping ability like the evolved Blaziken, which could easily jump over a 30-story building, Brachiosaurus at this time could at least jump a dozen floors. Brachiosaurus jumped high, and after accumulating strength in the air for a while, he used the feathers on his head and the strength of his body to maintain his balance and headed towards the constantly moving Blaziken. As an animal that can barely stay in the air, Brachiosaurus said that it was reasonable for him to adjust his direction in the air. Blaziken was at a loss because of the failure of using the Taishin Yading. Then we will also use bounce to avoid it. Kageyama's command was full of confidence. The little brooding horse immediately pushed the ground with all 4 hooves and jumped up. Tetsuya looked at the other side with a strange expression. Is he a joke? If it is said that it is reasonable to use the jet of flame to consume it, it is not a big deal. Although the little brooding horse did use the jumping skill to jump in the air, the height of the jump may be good compared with other similar ones. But compared with the height of the strong chicken, it is like a world champion competing with a high school student in high jump. Moreover, the little brooding horse cannot control its body in the air after using the jumping skill. It can only fall to the ground in an instant after accumulating power, and it falls almost on the spot. At this time, the strong chicken has taken advantage of this time to come above the head of the little brooding horse, move its body slightly, as the strong chicken uses the jumping skill to kick the little brooding horse's abdomen. The whole elf of the little brooding horse is kicked out and falls to the ground. Tetsuya's voice followed. Catch up and kick it twice. Stand up and trample it. Kageyama is naturally not to be outdone. Bang, bang. The 2 long legs of the brute, wrapped in fighting energy, collided fiercely with the 2 front hooves of the brute, making a dull sound. The 2 Pokémon were beaten back one after another. But soon, the brute was the first to recover its center of gravity, while the brute was still staggering to stabilize itself. Rockfall. Tetsuya said. What? Kageyama was a little surprised. On the field, the recovered brute lifted a big rock and threw it at the brute. Get out of the way, brute. Kageyama was a little desperate at this moment. For the brute, the rock-type rockfall damage is absolutely effective. The brute finally stabilized itself, and when it raised its head, a big rock fell on it. The trainer's voice came to his ears. What can I do? I'm also desperate. A trace of helplessness appeared in the eyes of the brute, but it can only let the rock fall on itself. Hey, brute, the brute screamed violently. It is still just a child. Tetsuya raised his eyebrows. Wow, this little pony is quite brave. He didn't fall down. Keep up the rock fall. If you don't fall down, I'll hit you until you fall down. That's easy. So strong chicken raised another big rock and threw it at the little pony lying on the ground. Hey, the little pony neighed, raised its head proudly, and then, bang, With the sound of being hit by the rock, the little pony fainted and lost its ability to fight. The little pony lost its ability to fight. Strong Chicken won. All 3 of Kageyama's Pokémon lost their ability to fight. The winner of this game is Tetsuya Tamaki from Nibijim. As the referee raised the flag and announced the result, there was a continuous cheer from the sidelines. This was a blessing for the wonderful performance of the 2 players. Tetsuya took back Strong Chicken, walked off the field, shook hands with Kageyama, and nodded to show friendship. "I will win next time," Kageyama said without thinking. Tetsuya was stunned for a moment, then smiled and said, "I will still win." The 2 smiled at each other and walked towards Miss Joy. The host's voice continued to be heard from behind. "Then please wait for 10 minutes until the venue is repaired. Now please ask Reiji from Hulanjim and Shunta from Huangjinjim to get ready in advance." Tetsuya handed the 2 Pokémons to Miss Joy and returned to the field after a few words with Kageyama. Kageyama naturally knew what he was going to do and did not drag him to communicate more, but ended the topic straightforwardly. The winner of the next 2 people will be Tetsuya's opponent in the finals, and he must not miss the battle between the 2. Otherwise, his Pokémons have revealed a lot of things that the other party knows, but he does not have enough understanding of the other party, and he will suffer a great loss in the battle. Just like him and Kageyama just now, in the previous battle between the 2 sides, many skills and characteristics were not exposed, and each of them did not understand the other party's methods. So throughout the battle, the 2 made different mistakes in many places. It was just that, because Tetsuya was strong enough, the mistakes had less impact on him, so it seemed that Kageyama was completely suppressed in the whole scene. If the difference in strength between the 2 was basically the same, Tetsuya's mistakes in the battle just now were very fatal. It was still during the break, and Tetsuya quickly closed his eyes and recalled the problems with his command in the last game. First, after getting close to the frog, the Strong Chicken should not have used the big character blast, big character fire, at all, and should have used the jet of fire instead. The charging time of the big character blast was too long, which gave the opponent enough time to use the prayer for rain, otherwise the Strong Chicken should be in a better state afterwards. Although the power of the jet of fire is weak, the distance is enough to use it twice, the damage is even greater and the speed is faster. If there is no problem, it can also interrupt the use of the prayer for rain. Second, the power of the lower body kick is still a little insufficient. In fact, if the frog had not lost its center of gravity more seriously than expected, the Strong Chicken would not be able to kick it down, and it should still learn a kicking skill to reserve. Third, at that time, Pidgeot should have directly switched to fight with the gull. The time wasted by the vain trial and the Strong Chicken's physical strength continued to be lost in the rain. Otherwise, the battle with the little brute could have been dealt with sufficient physical strength. Fourth, Pidgeot could have used the air slash to slash continuously without the swallow return at that time. The swallow return delayed the rhythm a bit. The fifth point, or it's okay to use Yanfan, but you shouldn't pin your hopes on air slash afterwards. You should try to get as close as possible to the opponent when he is wrapped in your vortex and use close combat to solve it. Otherwise, the effect of Yanfan is not achieved at all. Using air slash instead gives the opponent the opportunity to use destructive death ray. If it weren't for Pidgeot using a substitute in the end, Shiwanzi might have to be used in this battle. The sixth point. Please invest, collect, recommend, and vote for me. I ask for anything. Thank you Hangfeng Biosen for the 100 starting coins. Thank you Bookfriend 202105240850459118 for the 100 starting coins. PS. I'm desperate for the elves' calls. No. Chapter 59. Lacey and Falcon. Tetsuya reviewed his command in detail, and indeed there were many problems. After all, before this, he actually had little experience in formal battles. Many methods of outdoor battles cannot be used in formal battles. Although he had fought with other trainers in normal training, he did not have this feeling at all, and his strength was not as close as it is now. Sometimes, when bullying, it is impossible to see the problem of his command at all, because the ability of the Pokémon covers this aspect. In a sense, this game is also a reminder to Tetsuya. His strength is still insufficient. If he is strong enough, he can completely attack. Next, Please invite Reiji from the Cerulean Gym and Shunter from the Golden Gym to play. 10 minutes passed quickly while Tetsuya was thinking, and the two players on the field were ready. Go, Solomon. Go, Hypnotist. In stark contrast to Tetsuya and Kageyama's choices, the two on the field chose to start with their weakest Pokémon. I don't know if it's an illusion, but Tetsuya always feels that Reiji's face is a little darker. I guess so. After all, Psychic type is very restrained against Poison type. He carefully observed the abilities of both, and saw that the venom and poisonous mist sprayed by the dissolver even melted a part of the rock, and his face was also very serious. What a strong toxin. This is just a dissolver, and after it evolves into a devourer, wouldn't the toxicity be even stronger? Combined with the combo of charging and swallowing and spraying 3 skills, the strength in the future will not be low at all. And that hypnotic taper is also extraordinary. ZHE also looked at the hypnotic taper who was constantly torturing the dissolver with 3 moves, namely, immobilization, telekinesis, and hypnosis, and was also quite amazed at its strong superpowers. You should know that the development time of Psychic type Pokémon is also relatively long, only shorter than that of Ghost and Dragon. At this stage, this hypnotic taper can actually use skills to deal with the dissolve like this. Even if it has an advantage in attributes, it must be admired that it has developed well. Shadow Ball. Lacey narrowed his eyes, seized an opportunity, and commanded the dissolver to use the only skill that has a restraining effect on Psychic type. Falcon's face changed. Very few Molten Beasts could use Shadow Ball, and the other party had never used it before. Although he had thought about it, he thought the possibility was too small, so he didn't take it seriously. Teleport. Seeing the Shadow Ball approaching the hypnotic taper quickly, Falcon had no choice but to give the order. The hypnotic taper's figure flashed, but it didn't use teleport. Lacey's clenched fist also dropped. Sure enough, the hypnotic taper on the opposite side could only use teleport with its superpowers and mental power. Under the previous heavy consumption, it couldn't use it at all now. ZHE also shook his head. Teleportation is not a skill that can be mastered casually for Psychic Pokémon. In addition to requiring one's own strength, it also requires crazy practice. After all, it involves the conversion of space. If you don't practice well, or your strength isn't sufficient and your condition is not good, it is easy to fail. It is even more difficult to teleport with others, and it is easy to have a life-threatening accident. On the field, Shadow Balls hit the hypnotic taper's body one after another. It screamed and soon lost its combat ability due to poisoning. But the dissolver was not feeling well at this time, with wounds all over his body and breathing heavily. Then, the second Pokémon sent by Hayata, Moonstone, defeated the dissolver without any suspense, but unfortunately, he himself fell into a poisoned state. Although the damage was not great due to the attribute, it was also very tricky. Lacey sent out the Pincer Tail Scorpion to use a delaying tactic, but was hit by Hayata's Moonstone with a rockfall, which also consumed his physical strength quite seriously. If it weren't for the fact that the insect type has a very high damage to Moonstone, it is estimated that Lacey would even suffer a little loss. Fortunately, Moonstone lost its combat ability first. With the appearance of Hayata's third Pokémon, Coconut Tree, Tetsuya's face also trembled violently. He wanted to complain when he got the information. No, you told me that this is a civilian trainer invested by the Golden Gym? It's okay for hypnotic taper, and he was lucky to get it. You just gave it to a rare Pokémon like Moonstone? His initial Pokémon is an egg, and you gave him a leaf stone to evolve it directly? Tetsuya said that he was indeed jealous. Although the Stone Ball has 3 stages and is much stronger than the Moonstone, this thing is not only a rare Psychic Pokémon, but also very rare in itself, and its value is not much less. And there is also an Evolution Stone Leaf Stone. The quality given cannot be low, and the price is also very high. Looking at the investment in the Nabijim, it was originally very good, but the difference is obvious after this comparison. ZHE also secretly complained that it really deserves to be the most prosperous city in Kanto. Golden City, it is too rich. Watching the field with the last Mukahawk released by Lacey, fighting against the coconut tree that was seriously injured in the battle with the scorpion, he knew that this game was most likely won by Lacey. There was no way. The Scorpion's bug type restraint on the Falcon Pokémon was too great. With the level difference being almost the same, the Scorpion can be said to have completed the task of 1 against 1.5. Not to mention the restraint of Mukahawk on the grass type, the opponent had no way to solve it. Sure enough, with the attack of Mukahawk, the coconut tree quickly lost its combat ability. The referee also announced that Lacey won and entered the finals to fight against Zage. Zage stood up and went to Miss Joy to retrieve his Pokémon first. This was mainly to avoid a collision with Lacey. Zage returned to the place where he was preparing for the battle and thought, judging from Lacey's strength just now, he was still very dominant. The plan he made last night was also relatively perfect. There were no major problems, no major surprises or places that needed to be changed. The Molten Beast and the Scorpion were at a disadvantage against his Stone Balls and Strong Chickens in terms of attributes, not to mention that he was superior in terms of the combined abilities of the two. The best way was to start with Strong Chickens, because Muxeagle would definitely not appear as the first mover. Then the results would be very good, whether it was against the Scorpion or the Molten Beast. If Lacey chose the Molten Beast first and did not change the Pokémon, the worst thing for Strong Chickens would be to fall into a poison state and kill the opponent. Then he had to quickly resolve the battle with the Scorpion and could not delay, otherwise it was estimated that the worst result would be 2 for 2, and he might even need to consume some physical strength first. If you face the Scorpion, there is nothing much to say. After dealing with the Scorpion, you can deal with the Dissolving Beast. At worst, you can send out the Stone Ball to deal with the Dissolving Beast. In the end, the Pidgeot will definitely be in his favor against the Mukahawk. And now he is only thinking about the worst case scenario in this state. If he has not predicted Lacey's command wrong, the best situation is that the Strong Chicken will kill 2 at once and even consume the Mukahawk. Of course, he can also use the Stone Ball to start, in which case he needs 2. With the final confirmation, Zay showed a strange smile at the corner of his mouth. Please invest, collect, recommend, and vote for the monthly ticket. I want everything! Exclamation mark. Thanks to the Fat Otaku holding the Fat Otaku water for the reward of 100 starting coins. Chapter 60, Battle of Champions. The break was over in a flash. As the host's voice sounded, Tetsuya and Reiji were already standing on the podium. The referee raised the flag. The following is a 3v3 duel between Tetsuya and Reiji. You can change your Pokémon once during the match. The first player to have all 3 Pokémon fall down will be considered a failure. So now, the match begins. Please send out your Pokémons at the same time. Go, Aishiwanko. Go, Melt-Eating Beast. A stone-like Pokémon and a round green water drop-shaped Pokémon appeared on the field. Throw Mud. Acid Bomb. The two people's voices sounded almost simultaneously. As the two Pokémons used their skills, the green acid bomb and the brown mud ball met in the air. The two touched each other, making a sizzling sound, and the acid bomb completely melted the mud ball. Not only that, the acid bomb sprayed by the melt-eating beast even had enough energy to fly towards Aishiwanko. Tetsuya watched this scene very calmly. There was no way Aishiwanko's level was still inferior to the opponent. After all, she was just born not long ago. However, due to the restraint of the attribute, the acid bomb cannot hit Shiwanzi after consuming the mud ball. As expected, the green acid flew a distance and then fell to the ground. Then it corroded the ground into pieces. Gravity, invisible rock. It was still the most familiar skill combination. Shiwanzi quickly arranged the venue. There was no way the two elves would have a long offensive and defensive battle. Neither of them was good at close combat. The opponent had to prevent Shiwanzi from using ground attribute skills to attack at close range, which was very effective and impossible to dodge. He arranged it this way to be safe. Poison gas. Lacey didn't care. He didn't plan to get close. He commanded the dissolving beast to release poison gas and fly towards Shiwanzi. Quicksand hell. ZHE was still slowly turning the entire venue into his home court. After all, the flying speed of poison gas was too slow. After Shiwanzi used quicksand hell twice, the poisonous gas just flew into the range of the gravity skill. At this time, the field seemed to have no changes except for the poisonous gas. because whether it is gravity, invisible rock, or quicksand hell, it cannot be observed with the naked eye. Only when the opponent steps into the attack range can we know that there is a skill here. Seeing that the opponent is only concerned with setting up the field and is indifferent to the poisonous gas, Lacey is also a little confused. But he will not underestimate Zay mud attack. Anyway, once the opponent is poisoned, it is beneficial to drag the situation down. The dissolving beast threw out a series of deep purple mud, and it was obvious that the poison was very strong. Iron wall, and then sleep. Watching the poisonous gas filling around Shiwanzi, the highly toxic mud was also hitting Shiwanzi in the air. When Shiwanzi finished setting up the third quicksand hell, his body immersed in the poisonous gas became a little dull, and Zay's command came slowly. Shiwanzi's body flashed with light, and he used Iron Wall to strengthen his defense, and then fell into a deep sleep. Lacey looked at the opponent's actions with a gloomy face. The sleeping skill can not only restore a large amount of physical strength, but also restore abnormal states. Coupled with the defense bonus of Iron Wall, his poison gas and sludge bombs just now were basically useless. At most, it consumed a tiny amount of physical strength. He didn't expect that Shiwanzi would have the sleeping skill. After all, who would learn this skill for a serious rock type elf? However, the sleeping skill cannot be used too much. If you keep using it, you will be judged as passive fighting and losing the desire to fight. The referee will intervene and judge the loss. Yawn. Since you like to sleep so much, let you sleep enough at once. Commanding the dissolver to yawn, Shiwanzi fell into a deeper sleep. It is impossible to get close. Now Lacey has no idea where the opponent has just deployed the skill. Going up foolishly will only waste physical strength. Do it again. Lacey's eyes flashed, and he decided to continue the disgusting tactics to the end. One more time can make the opponent use the last move 3 times in a row. For Aishiganko, it is continuous sleep. Calculated, Aishiganko will sleep for at least 5 minutes, and the referee will soon rule him the loser. Zaya watched his opponent's operation quietly, until Lacey finished all the moves. Devour spits venom intermittently. Calculating the time, he slowly uttered 2 words. Snoring. Aishiganko made a deafening sound, which made the spectators frown. The referee next to him took out the special earplugs and put them on. The dissolver in the field was more seriously injured, and the whole Pokémon was dizzy. Sleeping and snoring. You are Aishiganko, not Snorlax. What route are you on? Lacey couldn't stop complaining in his heart. He wanted to disgust Zaya, but he didn't expect to be disgusted instead. Now it's his turn to have a headache. It seems that Aishiganko will not wake up for a while because of his previous operation. The physical strength will be restored all the time, and it will not fall into abnormal state. Snoring also causes damage to the dissolving beast, so it will not be judged as passive fighting. Moreover, if it continues like this, the dissolving beast will lose its fighting ability sooner or later. He felt dizzy after wearing earplugs, let alone the dissolving beast. His face kept changing, and he felt very uncomfortable. Shadow Ball. In the end, he still did not choose to change the elves, but commanded the dissolving beast to use the powerful Shadow Ball from a long distance to continuously attack Shiwanzi. Now it was his turn to pray that Shiwanzi would be awakened quickly. Otherwise, if it continued like this, the dissolving beast would be consumed all the time, and Shiwanzi would be consumed while recovering, and it was obvious who would win and who would lose. 3 minutes later, looking at the dissolving beast that had lost its fighting ability in the opposite side, Shiwanzi, who was scarred but still in good spirits, Lacey's face turned black. If it weren't for his nagging and insisting on extending Shiwanzi's sleeping time, how could the opponent win so easily? The audience around also breathed a sigh of relief, and the 2 of them finally finished. This battle was really boring. One was sleeping and snoring, while the other was attacking crazily with Shadow Ball. Not only was the visual effect boring, but it also tortured the ears. Racy took back the falcon. Waste, your attack is really low. He cursed in a low voice, and then threw out another Pokeball. Go, Karupi. As for abandoning the falcon, it was just talk. After all, this guy was at least tested to have the potential to be a Quasi King, and it couldn't be wasted. If the wild Pokémon was so trash, it could be thrown away at will. Karupi screamed loudly after it came out. It felt the dissatisfaction of its trainer. It also screamed because the invisible rock placed by Ishigaki took some damage. Fatal sting. Although he was very angry, Reisi remained calm. He evaluated the status of the opposite Ishigaki and asked Karupi to use the skill. After the fatal sting attacks the enemy and puts it into a dying state, Karupi's attack ability will become stronger. Shoot it down and block it. Tetsuya commanded Ishigaki to throw out the rock to hinder the attack of fatal sting. The thrown rocks hit the thin needles, and the size formed a clear contrast. Even though the attributes were occupied, the rocks were broken piece by piece. The fatal needles hit the stone balls with a slightly reduced force. Fortunately, the stone ball's physical strength was well maintained, and with the bonus of the iron wall, this attack did not make it lose its combat ability directly. Missile needle. But soon, the pincer-tail scorpion shot a series of sharp needles in the air towards the stone balls, and Zhe also commanded the stone balls to resist. But the number of missile needles was too large, and the stone balls were eventually hit by many missile needles, and lost their combat ability. Go, strong chicken. There was no other way to take back the stone balls. Originally, they were counting on the stone balls to consume some of the opponent's physical strength in the end. The strength gap was too big, so it was more or less completed. Jet flame. Big character explosion flame. Hot wind. Zhe also commanded the strong chicken to attack the pincer-tail scorpion continuously on the spot. The current battle situation only requires long-range consumption. No matter from which angle, the scorpion could not possibly fight against the chicken. Once it got close, it would have to cross the quicksand hell and invisible rocks that were nowhere to be found. It can be said that the scorpion, which could not fly, was stuck in place. They did not expect Lacey to be so considerate and did not interrupt Ishiwan's arrangement in the first game. Lacey commanded the scorpion and the chicken to consume each other with a dark face. He knew that if he continued like this, he would be led by Zay and there would be no hope of winning. He gritted his teeth and said, "Pay attention to dodge, move at high speed and rush forward, cross poison blade." Unfortunately, the scorpion just rushed to the middle of the field, and its 4 short legs were trapped by the quicksand and could not move. Jet flame combo. Zay would certainly not miss this opportunity and commanded the chicken to attack continuously. In order to prevent the scorpion from breaking free when other skills were charging, he chose to use the most convenient jet flame. After all, the quicksand was actually about to expire at this time. Karupi the scorpion burned by the jet flame screamed loudly. How can a bug resist the burning of flames? Moreover, the scorpion was hit frequently in the process of long-distance mutual consumption. The attribute restraint of its skills made it completely unable to offset the attack of the strong chicken, and the short legs could not escape the attack range. So when Lacey was still thinking that the scorpion could break free, the strong chicken sprayed flames one after another and hit the scorpion. The scorpion also screamed a few times and then stopped. Zhe also ordered the strong chicken to stop and be alert to use skills. The flames dissipated, and on the ground was a scarred scorpion with marks of flames and sand that had lost its combat ability. The scorpion has lost its combat ability, and the strong chicken wins. The referee immediately raised the flag to announce the result. Lacey clenched his fist and took the scorpion back. "Please invest, collect, recommend, and vote for the monthly ticket. I want everything!" Exclamation mark. Thanks to the book friend 150,408,181,044,458 for the reward of 100 starting coins. Thanks to Zios Hongsi for the 100 starting coins. Thanks to 196 for the 100 starting coins. Thanks to Yewen Huai Wednesday for the 100 starting coins. Thanks to Lanju Cuba for the 100 starting coins. PS 3k plus, so 3000 is enough for the extra update. No more at 9 PM. Chapter 61 Champion Rewards. He exhaled deeply. This feeling of being led by the enemy was too different from his own style. He was really unhappy. "You are indeed a strong enemy that I recognize." Thinking solemnly, Lacey threw his last Pokeball. Go, Mook. As soon as Mook came out, it was hurt by the invisible rock, although it was very slight. Lacey, who was eager to fight, felt as if a bucket of cold water was poured on the spot. This was outrageous. How many things did that stone bull have arranged? ZHE also tilted his head and looked at his Bridgerton. It seemed that there was nothing wrong except the consumption caused by the skills. Then let it continue. It's just that the flying type is indeed a bit difficult for Bridgerton. Jet flame. The old-fashioned way of greeting. ZHE also felt that he liked this time when he didn't have to think about skills more and more. Swallow return. Lacey commanded Mook to rush towards Bridgerton. There was no way. Pokémon like Mook were stronger at close range, unlike Pidgeot, which had so many medium and long range skills to use. With a white light, Mhawk used delicate flying movements to dodge the fire attack of Strong Chicken in the air. As it gradually approached, invisible rocks were directly destroyed by the energy brought by Mhawk. The energy light belt formed by Yanfan not only has an extremely strong momentum bonus, but in a sense, it can also protect the elves from some weak skills. Take it. ZHE's face was solemn. Use double payback. Lacey's pupils shrank. Mhawk hit Strong Chicken's body, causing Strong Chicken to wail in pain. But the warrior's instinct made it grit its teeth the next moment, and its body sank slightly, using its feet to step on the ground, to resist being knocked out. Then a punch of double payback hit the back of Mhawk, which was flying forward at a low altitude due to inertia. Mhawk was knocked to the ground by this sudden heavy blow, and could not move. Go ahead, Thunderfist. Now ZHE was extremely glad that he had taught Strong Chicken the Thunderfist, which was really useful against flying and water type Pokémon. Close combat. The counterattacks of Racy and Mhawk were also particularly fierce, which surprised ZHE on the opposite side. They did not choose to fly up to avoid Strong Chicken's Thunderfist, but chose to use close combat directly, giving up the ability to protect and quickly rushing in front of Strong Chicken. Mhawk, whose defense was reduced, was hit by Strong Chicken's Thunderfist and screamed repeatedly. But Strong Chicken was not much better. The power of close combat was far greater than that of Thunderfist. The damage it suffered was no less than that of Mhawk, who screamed because of the attribute restraint. The two Pokémons wrestled together, and the white light of the fighting type and the yellow light of the electric type, combined with the brown and red hair of the two Pokémons, mixed into a ball. With a fierce collision, Mhawk panted and flew back into the air with messy feathers. Chicken did several somersaults backwards, pulling away from the opponent, and his body was also covered with scars. They narrowed his eyes. Hot wind. Shadow clones. Disperse. Lacey responded calmly. Chicken summoned his spirits and used hot wind to fan the sky. Mhawk held his breath and created dozens of clones, which scattered in all directions. Hot wind chased after it, breaking the shadow clones one by one. After a round of confrontation, neither elf gained anything. For a moment, the field fell into a stalemate. Mhawk flapped its wings and stayed in the air looking at Chicken below, while Chicken stood still, responding to changes with the same attitude. It was Zay who broke the confrontation first. Gather key. If you don't move, I won't move either. At most, I can add status. Anyway, Mhawk doesn't have any status skills, at most one self-motivation, and Chicken is not incapable of it. A flash of lightning, and then a slam. Lacey was waiting for this moment. Status skills take time, and you can't stop in the middle. Get out of the way. Hearing the opponent's order, Lacey watched the movements of Strong Chicken. After all, he knew that the opponent had a hidden characteristic of acceleration, and he was not particularly sure whether his Mhawk could take this opportunity to attack Strong Chicken. Mhawk used all its strength to hit Strong Chicken, who was standing still and using the energy concentration. Strong Chicken used the skill steadily and then instantly jumped back into the air. Boom. This was not the sound of Strong Chicken being hit, but the roar of Mhawk hitting the ground. Bounce. Although smoke and dust were everywhere, ZHE believed that Strong Chicken could grasp the position of Mhawk. Strong Chicken immediately attacked the landing point in his memory. Reckless. Lacey's eyes flashed with a hint of ferocity, and he ordered. ZHE frowned. Why bother? As Strong Chicken successfully hit Mhawk, Mhawk's physical strength was basically exhausted, and he barely used Reckless, which also hit Strong Chicken's state to the lowest point. Both Pokémons lay on the ground, unable to move, staring at each other with their eyes. Tetsuya shook his head and took back the brute. Go, Pidgeot. Pidgeot flew in the air, looking coldly at the Mukoth lying on the ground opposite him. Blow the wind. As the trainer's last command sounded, Pidgeot rolled up a gust of wind and attacked Mukoth. Mukoth could only wail and lost its ability to fight. The referee immediately raised his hand. Mukoth has lost its ability to fight. Pidgeot wins. All 3 Pokémon of Reiji have lost their ability to fight. The winner of this match is Tetsuya Tamaki from Nibijim. What a wonderful match. I hope I can have another match with you in the unlimited match of the Quartz Conference. Reiji walked to the stage, shook hands with Tetsuya, and said with a forced smile, then turned around and left to heal the Pokémon. Tetsuya looked at Reiji's voice going away and said nothing, but felt that this guy was still a good opponent except for his occasional stupidity and his behavior similar to his brother Shinji's later. Asking the entourage to help him hand the Pokémon over to Miss Joy for treatment, Tetsuya stood on the podium as the host called. Then it's time to award the champion. The prize for this competition is an evolution stone of any attribute sponsored by the 3 brothers of Ibrahimovic from Stone Town, and a charcoal with 10% effect. With the enthusiastic voice of the host, even though he knew the generous reward was a long time ago, ZHE also became a little excited. The audience who had just cheered for ZHE's victory had already gradually lowered their voices. After hearing the announcement of such a championship reward, even if they were considered rich, they couldn't help but start discussing it with envy. Those who knew the business had already begun to explain to the people around them that the normal sponsorship reward was just an evolution stone. After all, for the 3 brothers of Stone Town, they were already big consumers of evolution stones, so it didn't matter at all. The reason why the reward this time had an extra charcoal with 10% effect was, as far as they knew, a result of a coincidence in time. Please invest, please collect, please recommend, please vote for the monthly ticket. I want everything! Exclamation mark. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62. Rest after the game. You should know that it is not 1 or 2 years that all the official gyms in Kanto have held this competition on the St. Anu. But this year is the most special case, and it is the first time that it has happened, because the age of the heirs of all the gyms is just in a window period. That is, the older ones are over 20 years old, and the younger ones are just 16 years old. Considering this situation, it may not be very good to watch, because most of the players are relatively weak. Although it is related to age, many people do it without reason. In order not to make people think that the strength of the Kanto region has declined, the 3 brothers of EV simply added a reward of a Pokémon item. After all, economic strength is also strength, which can shut up some people. Although it feels that this reason is also far-fetched, it has nothing to do with Tetsuya. At least he won the championship reward this time and made a fortune. He selected a leaf stone that he had long determined to need and was told to go to the Pokémon Center in Vermilion City to pick it up. After getting off the ship, Tetsuya held the charcoal in his hand and walked off the stage with a certificate. His face was a little strange inexplicably. A certificate, just a piece of paper, let alone a trophy. There was not even a shell on the outside. Excuse me, Miss Joy. He walked to the treatment point and took his 3 Pokeballs from the tray handed over by Channel. This is my job, how can it be troublesome? Miss Joy smiled and then took Channel back. For her, being invited to be the logistics support for this competition was also a vacation in a sense. She had finally grabbed the quota. Zay chose the luxury ball of Bramblerabin without hesitation and released Bramblerabin. He handed the charcoal in his hand to Bramblerabin and told him, absorb it. Bramblerabin nodded. It also roughly knew what this thing was. It could effectively enhance the power of its fire skills. Carefully took the charcoal from the trainer. They stared at Bramblerabin's movements. To be honest, this was the first time he saw a Pokémon using a Pokémon item. He didn't know how it was absorbed. The charcoal item lay quietly on Bramblerabin's claws. As Bramblerabin used his energy to touch the charcoal, it slowly soaked into Bramblerabin's body. Zay had a puzzled expression like a black question mark face. Isn't it so careless? There is no need for a flash of white light, and then the energy of the strong chicken is stirred up, and a strong wind is raised, as if the gods have descended to the earth. He sighed. It seems that he has indeed thought too much. Come to think of it, this thing is just a prop, not an attribute stone tablet. How can it be so exaggerated? Asked the strong chicken's feelings. The strong chicken said that this little thing entered his body at once, and now he doesn't feel anything. He decisively turned on Zero to test the situation of the strong chicken. Nodding with satisfaction, Zero is still the best. According to the test report of Zero, the energy intensity in the body of the strong chicken has indeed increased, and the temperature of the flame has also increased accordingly. Not only that, according to Zero's deduction, if the effect of the elf prop is further improved, it should have other effects on the strong chicken. However, due to the limitation of the data, it is not clear what the specific effect is. Putting this question aside, Zay let the strong chicken feel it himself, and then took it back to his room to change clothes. This time, Zyadagang specially prepared a suit for him, just for the evening dinner, and also trained him in etiquette. After all, they all represent the gym behind them, so they still have to show a perfect spirit. ZHE has lived alone for more than 10 years in this life. He has never been in a relationship in his 20s in his previous life, let alone been a dog. Most of his clothes are either outdoor adventure clothes or sports quick drying clothes. He doesn't have any formal clothes. You can't wear casual clothes to attend a party, and you can't do that out of respect for others. After changing clothes, he took back the 3 elves that had finished dinner and shrunk them into elf balls and pinned them around his waist. He walked up to the banquet venue on the 6th floor. At this time, many players were already sitting there chatting and communicating. Hearing the sound of wind chimes caused by pushing the door, many people couldn't help but look at the entrance. What a handsome boy. His perfect figure perfectly supported the royal blue suit on his body, and the swallowtail hem design made the whole person look particularly elegant. Tetsuya smiled and nodded, greeting everyone who looked at him, and everyone returned the greeting. The few female trainers sat down subconsciously, looking like ladies from a noble family, and greeted Tetsuya reservedly. He glanced at the people inside, his eyes lit up slightly, and walked straight in one direction. Looking at where he was going, some people temporarily gave up the idea of greeting him. Good evening, Kageyama. Tetsuya simply greeted him. Good evening, isn't this our champion? The other party seemed a little sarcastic. Laughing, Tetsuya picked up the drink beside him, took a sip, and said to Kageyama, why didn't you seem so energetic just now, huh? Kageyama rolled his eyes at him, but didn't refute anything, and changed the subject. Why did you come to see me? Lazily leaning on the sofa, Tetsuya said that he was very bored. I don't know many people, and I just got along well with you when I got on the ship these few days. Yes, Tetsuya's regular observation every morning was not useless. He took this opportunity to get to know a lot of people. Kageyama was one of them, and the two of them had a good chat unexpectedly. Otherwise, the two of them wouldn't have chatted like this during the previous battle. If it was Reiji, wouldn't Tetsuya have said nothing? Don't you know Reiji? Kageyama said jokingly. Of course, he knew that Tetsuya didn't like Reiji, and even he himself found it difficult to have a good impression of Reiji. The words that Reiji said in the restaurant on the night he boarded the ship caused a lot of people to be disgusted. It is said that he was only stopped by the Hualan gym after a lecture. Hey, he is a strange person. ZHE also shook his head slightly. It doesn't matter. Anyway, we are opponents. I guess there is no way to talk. That's right. No. Kageyama raised his head slightly and motioned Zaya to look at the corner. A man in a black suit sat in the corner, and the surrounding bustle seemed to have nothing to do with him. He ate quietly alone. It was Reiji. TSK. It seems like he is isolated. Zaya sighed. Kageyama smiled. It's just his own fault. After all, not many people support his words and deeds. Besides, in this kind of occasion, of course, everyone is not willing to communicate with him. Reiji left the scene quickly after dinner, and no one took his departure to heart. After a while, the two of them tacitly changed the topic and began to talk about topics that all trainers care about. Please invest, collect, recommend, and vote for the monthly ticket. Whatever you want. Exclamation mark. Thanks to the gushing fountain for the 100 starting coins. PS. I can think about the 4th Pokémon at night. Tentatively decided on the grass type. I haven't decided what I want. Can you help me think about it? Deg. For the beauty flower, I can change it to the sunstone later. It won't be a big problem. Chapter 63. Return to Vermilion City. The sun was setting, and dusk enveloped the entire Vermilion harbor. The Saint Anu stopped at the harbor. Zaire got off the boat and stretched his body. He finally ended this journey. At the banquet in the evening after the game, he met a lot of people of the same age and added each other as friends. The next 2 days were basically spent with them eating sunflower seeds, chatting, swimming, etc., and playing games together. Occasionally, when he was in the mood, he would play a few 1v1 battles between friends. He also played a few games with Stoneball, and there were some losses and some wins. After all, Stoneball Zero was only level 18 at this time, and it was normal to lose to those elves who were about to enter the elite. As for the strong chicken and Pidgeot, forget it, there was no need. Then every afternoon, he would go fishing for elves at a fixed time and place, and communicate with those uncles and ask questions, and the day passed like this. To be honest, it was okay to enjoy this kind of life occasionally for 1 or 2 days. He had been on the boat like this for 5 days, and he was a little bit unbearable. In his previous life, he would have collapsed long ago, but the experience of this life made the adventurous factor in his body unusually active, and now he only wanted to train and travel. Rest. What is rest? So when the Saint Anu docked at the port, he greeted the people he knew, and couldn't wait to get off the ship. Otherwise, the others would have to exchange some pleasantries. To be honest, it feels really good to be down to earth. Zaire sighed. He hurriedly walked towards the Pokémon Center, not knowing if there were any rooms left at this time. If there were no rooms, he would have to find a homestay or hotel to stay in. Remembering that he still had a leaf stone waiting for him to pick up at the Pokémon Center, his mood became much better and his steps became lighter. He came to the Pokémon Center and asked Miss Joy. There were just a few rooms left, so Zaire quickly booked one. He took out his ID card and mentioned to Miss Joy that he had something here. After Miss Joy confirmed his identity, she took out a gorgeous brocade box from under the counter and handed it to Zaire. After taking it, he secretly checked the item, thanked Miss Joy, and returned to the room. After all, wealth should not be revealed. He couldn't just open the box in the lobby of the Pokémon Center and say that he had made a fortune. And the purpose of his request for the leaf stone was to prepare for the cultivation of the next Pokémon in advance. Stoneball only needs special rocks to develop, and no evolution stone with corresponding attributes has been found. Many Pokémon doctors believe that special rocks in nature are the best evolution stones for rock and ground Pokémon. Except for not having the ability to evolve Pokémon, various special rocks can meet their various needs, not just limited to increasing energy. In terms of cultivation, special rocks are even more effective than evolution stones for them, if there are so-called rock or ground evolution stones. Brachyura can use the fire stone to absorb energy and speed up its growth. But ZHE always feels that it has improved fast enough. If it is faster, it may not be able to control its own strength enough. And considering that there will be a gap in the strength of the 6 Pokémon in the main team, it is not possible to cultivate only Brachyura. This will cause an imbalance and is not good for him. So he chose Leaf Stone as the reward for this competition, because his 4th Pokémon was supposed to be a grass type. Of course, all this would have to wait until both Stompy and Stoneball evolved to their final forms, so there was no rush at the moment. But this also meant that he would have to keep the leaf stone in his hands for a while, which was somewhat unsafe. After pondering for a while, Tetsuya took out his watch and started calling. Beep. Hello, this is Zyadagang. The call was quickly connected. Don't pretend. You must have known the news a long time ago. Tetsuya rolled his eyes, and Zyadagang couldn't see it anyway. I chose leaf stone. I'll send it to you later, and you can pick it up tomorrow. Okay, no problem. It's just a small matter to send me a message. Zyadagang on the other end of the phone agreed very happily. Well, I came to you mainly to ask about the matter you asked you to find out before, and the leaf stone was just a byproduct. Tetsuya came to sit on the sofa. Well, no problem. First of all, there is indeed this thing. Xiaogang replied after a moment of silence. It can be clearly heard that he has moved to a new place and the noisy sounds around him have completely disappeared. I looked for it and found that this technology does exist, but it is very immature and there is no hope of success at present. It seems that each company has only invested a small amount of funds in it, and it is also a higher level research. The Nabijam only allows the museum to study it on its own. After all, this technology is equivalent to reversing time and creating life, which is too difficult. I didn't even notice this thing myself. I was stunned when you asked me last time. How did you think of it? Nothing. Last time a novice challenged my strong chicken and took a small prize. In addition, I seem to have seen similar papers before, so please find out if there is such a technology. Zaya replied to Xiaogang in a calm tone. Oh, so, and the thing you asked me to ask my uncle last time has also been solved. As if he suddenly remembered something, Xiaogang's voice suddenly rose. You don't have to be so loud, I can hear it, I'm not deaf. Zaya replied faintly. The other side smiled awkwardly. Uncle Jeheo means that he can give some advice to your Geodude when he comes back. He is in a very far area now, and I finally contacted him. ZHE also hummed in response. I will send you the follow-up improvement plan for your Geodude later. I finished it when I was on the ship. Okay. Xiaogang was also quite happy. It just so happens that Geodude has been a little slack recently, so take this opportunity to teach it a good lesson. Okay, that's it. I'm hanging up. Bye. Bye. ZHE also hung up the phone, thinking about the conversation he had just had with Xiaogang. In other words, the current fossil resurrection technology has not yet taken shape, it has just been simply started, and the research and development time is unknown, and the specific content is also unknown. He was a little hesitant. After all, wrestling can certainly generate huge profits, but the research and development time of technology cannot be transferred according to his will. Investing funds in hoarding is risky, especially for something as valuable as fossils. It is also unknown how big the fossils in this world's fossil resurrection technology are required, or whether the amount of Pokémon genes contained in the fossils will have an impact on the resurrected Pokémon. These are all big problems. ZHE also had a headache. It seems that this money-making job is not as easy as he imagined. After thinking about it, he decided to postpone this matter. He didn't have so much money to invest in it. The best situation is that this experiment will be successful later, and Xiaogang will remember his question and take him to have some soup. After all, the appearance of so many new rare elves will inevitably cause a rush for looting. It is conservatively estimated that the value of fossils will increase several times based on the current high price. It would be good if he could take a little of such a huge profit. Putting this aside, it is another money-making plan that was strangled in the cradle. It is too difficult to make money these days. ZHE also thought about it. He couldn't go to Dasha Valley for the time being. After all, he didn't know how strong the fossil elves below were. The vague memory of the animation in his previous life told him that there were many fossil elves in it, and it was quite dangerous. As for the plot and the strength shown in the animation, he couldn't believe it. After all, he came to this world for real. Many places have changed. Whether it is from the perspective of the game or the world of the animation, it is impossible to become a reality, so he dare not take too many risks. When the fossil elves lived in ancient times, they were all carnivorous. After such a long period of domestication, the wildness of modern elves has been worn away a lot. Those below the Dasha Valley have lived from ancient times to the present. I don't know how hungry they are. If I don't have enough strength, I will be bitten to death if I go down. Moreover, that place is a popular place for digging fossils. It is not realistic for me to sneak down there. The best way is to have a strong psychic elf, which will solve everything. After all, if I had a psychic elf at the beginning, I would have soared to the top. Sighing, ZHE also thought that the only good news was that Xiaogang's uncle Jeheo was willing to guide him after returning. As a martial arts brother, Jeheo is not inferior to him in strength. Anyway, according to Xiaogang, His uncle has the strength of a king, but because he travels abroad all year round and often goes on adventures in various places, he doesn't register at all. His uncle has always felt that registration is useless, and he doesn't need related benefits. Nibby Jim is enough to support him. His trump card is a quasi-god Banjara, a true desert tyrant. The second ranked Pokémon is a giant rock monster, and its important development direction is defense and energy, which is similar to the positioning that Zay gave to his own stone balls. So since he knew it, Zay asked Zyadagang to help him ask if he could give him some advice. It seems that his luck is good after all. Zyadagang must have made a lot of efforts in this, so I should find time to thank him. Thinking of this, Zay hurriedly sent his follow-up training plan for the small Geodude to Zyadagang. Thinking about what else he has not done, he can spend some money to have the Pokémon Center mail the Leaf Stone directly to the Nibby Gym tomorrow morning. Just complete it while going out for exercise in the morning, and it will probably arrive in the afternoon. Calculating the time, there is about half a year before the next Quartz conference. Vermilion City doesn't seem to be particularly suitable for training and doing tasks. Zay's fingers tapped on the sofa. So should he go to take down the Vermilion Gym badge tomorrow? Please invest, collect, recommend, and vote for me. I ask for anything. Thanks to Chen Feng Muzu for the 100 Kidian coins. PS. Uncle Zyadagang is a character template provided by the book Friend Death is not afraid to fight again in 100 worlds of reincarnation. Thank you very much. Then this chapter will be updated with 3k, and I still owe 3k. Today I have 7k. It's so hard. Chapter 64 A pair. After hesitating for a while, he decided to forget it. Although it was also a 2v2 battle, the probability of winning by sending Stone Ball and Strong Chicken was also very high, but the most urgent task was to complete the evolution of the two Pokémon first. Thinking of this, ZHE also left a message to Zyadagang. Please ask your uncle for me. After the Stone Ball evolves into the Mantle Rock, should it wait for a while before evolving into the giant rock monster, or can it be directly exchanged for evolution without waiting for the opportunity? Although he knew it, he always had to appear ignorant. Counting the errand reward promised by Zyadagang to get the championship, he still had a little over 11 million yuan. This amount of alliance coins is definitely not enough, so he has to think of a way to make more money in the next period of time. He was a little confused. After a week of rest, his thinking was a little unclear and his reaction was a little slow. Forget it, let's rest first, and wait until tomorrow morning. Lying on the bed in a daze, ZHE soon fell asleep. There was no conversation all night. The next morning, ZHE also completed his daily morning exercise and sent the Leaf Stone to Zyadagang. Just now, when he was running around the city, he found that there were still many interesting places in Vermilion City, a seaport city. For example, when he passed by the entrance of a stadium, he saw a banner hanging on it. Pokémon Ping Pong, a competition between Pokémon and trainers, waiting for you to participate. It looked like a table tennis training center. It was also quite novel. It was the first time he saw a sport like table tennis in this world. And outside the Pokémon school in Vermilion City, there was also a banner for Pokémon orienteering. It must be said that due to the popularity of Pokémon in this world, although not everyone can become a real trainer, most people still have their own Pokémon. It's just that, because of the lack of cultivation and talent, the basic strength of the Pokémon that most people have is very low. This did not affect them at all, based on the strange creatures such as Pokémon, and they launched one activity after another. Perhaps it is because of these reasons that people now live so harmoniously with the Pokémon. Even if some uninhabited places in the wild are still the law of the jungle where the strong prey on the weak, people in most cities, radiated by the Alliance, still live relatively happily. After passing a house owned by a man named Security, Zaya turned a corner at the intersection and headed straight for the Bounty Hunter Center. After carefully selecting, he took a B-level mission worth 300,000 yuan with the authority that was upgraded by 1 level. He confirmed that, if he completed 5 more B-level missions, his hunter level would be upgraded to B-level. According to the treatment given by Joey, he could take 3 B-level missions at the same time by then, which would make money much faster. As for A-level missions, this level of mission was not something he could complete, not to mention that the number of A-level missions in a city in a year was not that many. Long-term missions of B-level and below are the main source of income for most bounty hunters. He called the dolly that was parked on the side and asked it to take him to the outskirts of the city. After swiping the card to pay, Zaya threw Pidgeot's Pokeball, fixed himself on Pidgeot's claws, and let Pidgeot fly towards the destination. After slowly flying for 7 or 8 minutes, ZHE saw a cliff and the coast. This is Route 24 to 25. Also known as the White Cape, it is the northeasternmost end of the Kanto region. It is so called because the sand here is pure white. In addition, it is also a tourist attraction, and many couples will choose to date here. If it is according to the animation, this place will soon be requisitioned by Masaki, who has become a doctor, to call the mysterious Black Shadow the Giant Dragonite. But it is obviously unlikely in this world, because this is still a recognized field training place by many trainers, and it has even gradually developed into a small town with relatively complete facilities. Even if Masaki is a doctor, it is impossible to requisition this piece of land and prohibit all trainers from approaching, which will cause a lot of dissatisfaction. After all, Dr. Masaki was born in Manjin City and is not a person from the Kanto region, so there is a gap. It is likely that only a corner of the cliff will be requisitioned as the location of his lighthouse. However, it is still unknown whether these things will happen. ZHE also patted Pidgeot's claws with his hand. Pidgeot understood and began to fall slowly. After landing on the designated site, he untied the safety equipment on his body, thanked Pidgeot, and put it into the Pokeball. There were countless trainers coming and going around. There were also many flying Pokémons with their trainers. Pidgeot was a common one. However, Tetsuya's Pidgeot was rare and looked very outstanding, so a few people paid attention to him. He looked quite strong. Just as he was about to leave, a Charizard landed next to him with the trainer on its back. The people next to him immediately looked at him with envy. Charizard was one of the 3 great Pokémons in Kanto. The fact that it could evolve into its final form showed that it must be quite strong. And it was very handsome, and was considered a divine pet by many people. Tetsuya walked out of the landing area quickly. He didn't have the leisure to look at others. He probably had to stay in this area for a while this time. It was mainly to prepare for the evolution, and he could also take this opportunity to train Pidgeot nearby. Looking around, there was a lot of noise. Most of the houses here were made of wood, and there was still some distance from the coast. There are all kinds of places, such as shops, Pokémon centers, hotels, and battlefields. There is even a bounty hunter center here. I just don't know if the tasks there are the same as those in the city. Just in case there are no B-level tasks here, they took them in advance, otherwise it would be a waste of time. And with Pidgeot's speed, it only takes about 20 minutes to go back and forth. In order to make money, he can overcome his fear of heights. He walked into the Pokémon Center and booked a room for 2 weeks and 14 days. They will spend the next half month here. Throwing the things into the room, Zay relaxedly took 3 Pokeballs and an identity card and began to walk around the town. Because he still had to wait for the various breeding materials that Zyanogang bought to arrive before he could start training, it was estimated that they would be sent here in the afternoon. Taking advantage of the morning time, he had to first understand the surrounding environment and situation to facilitate his activities here. Although he had already learned part of it on the Pokémon forum, the people there didn't say it clearly, only saying that this place is very suitable for training. What is the specific suitable method? They were all vague. Asking Miss Joy for an introduction, they began to read it. Please invest, please add to my collection, please recommend, please vote for me. I want anything. Thank you KCF for the 500 starting coins. Thank you Solitary Island is the Deep Seas Lover for the 200 starting coins. Thank you Hellfire for the 500 starting coins. Thank you Ryuji Shiki is my wife for the 100 starting coins for Serona. Doge. Chapter 65 White Cape. After reading the manual given by Miss Joy in detail, ZHE finally understood the content of the training here. In the White Cape, there are the largest and most intense tidal currents in Kanto. Here, the best way for trainers to train their Pokémon is to let the Pokémon use their bodies and skills to fight against those fierce tsunamis and ocean currents in the seaside venue of the White Cape. Pokémon often get some training in this process, and some Pokémon even learn some more difficult skills. ZHE finally understood why the advice of those senior trainers in the Pokémon forum is that you will feel the supreme power of nature here. The biggest possibility is that when these trainers trained their Pokémon here, they also suffered from the torture of nature, so they wanted to let their juniors come here to train and enjoy it. But it must be said that the training effect here is indeed very good, so it has attracted many trainers. At the end of Miss Joy's guide, there is also a very obvious safety tip. It is to remind the trainers not to bring fire type, rock type, ground type Pokémon near the sea or throw them into the sea, including those Pokémon that cannot swim. Otherwise, when tragedy strikes, you will only regret it. Obviously, this reminder is used to warn the novice trainers. Because although the education of the Alliance is very popular, there are still many novice trainers who do not have a clear enough understanding of the attributes. It is also possible to imagine how scared they would feel if a rock type or fire type Pokémon were thrown into the sea. Fortunately, his main purpose this time was to train Pidgeot, and the other two Pokémon were currently at the evolution time point of accumulating energy. Of course, ZHE is not such a stupid person. And it is not that there is no training ground for Pokémon of other attributes, but compared to the generosity of nature, you need to pay a price. Walking on the road in the town, you can hear the exchanges and greetings of the trainers. Oh my god, I was scared to death. My stinging jellyfish was almost swept away by the waves. Fortunately, the safety measures were in place. What's the big deal? My giant crab ran out of the sea by itself. I haven't seen it for 2 days. I thought it was gone, but it found itself. The White Cape far away from the world seems to be another world, different from the fireworks in the city. Here, most people are trainers, so what they discuss every day is nothing more than what they see, think, and feel during training. Of course, there are also many couples who come here to watch the natural beauty of the sunset and tides together. In addition, according to incomplete statistics, at least 10 couples jump off the cliff on the White Strait every year. It is called witnessing the eternity of love, but ZHE also said that he can't understand it at all. Walking into a fruit shop on the street, he looked at the price of the fruit inside. If it is wholesaled in large quantities, the price is not much different from the price posted by the Hunter Guild. Maybe because there are so many trainers coming and going here, there are also many trainers who regard selling ordinary resources such as fruit as their best source of income. Of course, what attracted Zay's attention the most was the fruit in the middle of the store that was used for promotion, the sand scale fruit. The real sand scale fruit can be used to increase the speed of the Pokémon. After eating the sand scale fruit, the Pokémon's speed will be faster than before, and the body will develop more perfectly. However, no one has been able to artificially grow the sand scale fruit so far. Only a very small number of trainers have seen it in the wild or deep forests, where few people have ever been. Moreover, there are only 1 or 2 sand scale fruits on a sand scale fruit tree, which is extremely rare. The sand scale fruit in the store is just a virtual shadow projected on the screen. I asked the boss, and the boss said that it was the treasure of the store used for promotion. Although he did have the sand scale fruit in his hand, many people couldn't buy it. As for robbing his fruit, this is unrealistic. He got 2 sand scale fruits in total. He gave one to the Oak Research Institute as a research object, and the price was that the other one was also preserved very well inside the Oak Research Institute, and he was also protected. I can only sigh at the boss's good luck. As for why the boss didn't use it himself, the reason is that the boss had already achieved a pretty good result in the unlimited conference in the region before he got the sand scale fruit. His elf qualifications were basically at the end, and eating the sand scale fruit was just a waste. After the trip, he returned to his hometown, Vermilion City, and opened such a store nearby. He wanted to use this as a publicity focus to attract more customers to his store to buy tree fruits. The effect was really good, and he earned a lot of Alliance coins with this gimmick. Everyone has their own way of living, and the boss's life is also very enjoyable. After the conversation, ZHE also bought a lot of tree fruits and asked the boss to send them to his room, and then turned and left. This consumption made him, who was not rich to begin with, even worse. Since asking Xiao Gang to help him buy special rocks and send them over, Zay only had 3 million yuan left. He spent another 500,000 yuan on purchasing tree fruits, and there was a balance of 2.5 million yuan. There was no way. Although he could get resources from the Nabi gym at half price, they were not endless. Considering the number of special rocks needed for Ishiganko, Zaire estimated that most of his quota would be consumed on this. So if you can buy common supplies such as tree fruits outside, you should buy them outside. Next to the tree fruit store is a training ground for external rental, which has all kinds of facilities. Of course, it is still different from the Nabi gym, but it is enough for training. It is not expensive. I asked the price, and it is only 100,000 alliance coins a day. After all, considering the damage to the venue and the maintenance of the equipment, this price is still acceptable. Zaire immediately turned back to the room, took out his backpack, and sold some of his training equipment. He didn't know there was such a venue before, but now that he knows, why do he need so many equipment? Usually, you don't need a lot of training in the wild, just keep them to maintain the condition. After calculating, although it is second-hand equipment, it is not worn out, so the price is acceptable. Selling half of the 6 equipments, a total of 400,000 discount. Although the value of the tree fruits was not recovered, it was finally a mouthful of blood. After looking at the time and hesitating for a moment, ZHE also felt that he had to take advantage of this time to complete the B-level mission. If he was lucky, he would come back around 1 or 2 in the afternoon, hand in a mission, and go to see what the training ground by the sea was like. By the way, let Pidgeot go for some exercise. After looking at the direction, he headed towards the mountains next to him. Please invest, please add to your collection, please recommend, please vote for me. I ask for anything. Thank you for the 100 starting coins rewarded by death before life. Chapter 66 Mission number 19,789,170,519. Aishiwanzi, use quicks and held to restrain it. Pidgeot, use S/ to harass it after the shadow clone. Strong chicken, spray flames and attack the bottom of its pattern. In the Rocky Mountains, there was a fierce battle sound coming from an empty land. There were many huge rocks around. Looking into it, it was Tetsuya and his 3 Pokémons who were fighting with a Pokémon that looked like a giant purple cobra. This Pokémon was huge. Just by visual estimation, it was more than 6 meters long. 1 person and 3 pets seemed like babies in front of it. The strong and powerful body combined with the terrible venom that was enough to kill people. This was the Pokémon that had almost no natural enemies in the wild. Arbok. The most eye-catching thing about Arbok was the pattern on its neck. According to the latest research, this Pokémon has more than 20 different patterns. But the most common one was the one in front of Tetsuya, which resembled an angry human face, black eye sockets, red and yellow glasses, black corners of the mouth with a mouth raised upwards, and black eyebrows in the shape of a downward arrow. He had observed this Arbok for a while before, and it had just finished hunting. This was one of the reasons why he chose it. Even if it was an elf, snakes were relatively weak after digesting their prey. The pattern on its abdomen did not have any special abilities, and its regeneration ability was not extremely outstanding. It was an ordinary Arbok. At least according to research, very few Arboks still have strong regeneration abilities. As long as the head was not severely injured, other parts could be regenerated if they were cut off. This one did not have that. Otherwise, it could be sold at a good price if it was caught. As for this one now, it just had elite strength, and considering its ferocious nature, its value would be much lower. The long-term task that Zaire took on, officially numbered 19,789,170,519, was to collect fresh Arbok snake skins. He had wanted to take on such a task for a long time, but because Pidgeot was still not strong enough at the time and Brachayura was just born, he chose a more suitable cleaning task. Now he has 3 Pokémons. The chance of winning against this kind of ordinary Arbok in the wild is quite high, and the profit is very good, quite considerable. After all, even the old snakeskin has good medicinal value, not to say that only the freshest snakeskin is valuable. But there is also a problem. Arbok has a very stubborn personality. Once it decides on a target, it will chase the prey, no matter where it runs. So once you get into trouble with this behemoth in front of you, the best way is to completely solve it, whether it is to kill it, or catch it and sell it. Otherwise, the injured Arbok may come to you, when you are adventuring in the wild, and hit you from behind. They are very patient hunters. Of course, if you really encounter an Arbok that can change patterns, and has super regenerative ability, it is also very powerful to use it as your own Pokémon. For details, you can refer to Grandmaster Kuko's Arbok. Chabakul Arbok shouted coldly, while constantly closing the distance. As Aishiwan's quicksand hell appeared under Arbok, the opponent was also subject to a lot of speed restrictions. Although it broke free with its huge strength after only a moment's delay, there was still another piece of quicksand. At the same time, Pidgeot and its shadow clones harassed it, and the real air slash mixed in the phantom, hitting its huge body. Brachyura also sprayed out jets of flames to block its advance. Arbok stood up high, revealing the pattern on its abdomen. This was the Great Snake Stare, which could effectively frighten the enemy. However, the attacks of Pidgeot and Brachyura did not stop at all. Only Aishiwan's quicksand hell gradually slowed down, and even stopped for a while. Aishiwanzi, don't be afraid, use Mud Throw on its eyes. They hurriedly commanded Aishiwanzi to interfere with Arbok. This situation is due to the level and strength. Pidgeot's level is far above Arbok, and Brachyura is not inferior to it at all. Not to mention that the strength of both should actually be stronger than this Arbok who has just entered the elite level. The effect of the Great Snake Stare was not really shown on these two. In fact, if it weren't for the fact that its toxicity was too strong, Pidgeot alone could have dealt with it. The main reason was that it was not very convenient after being poisoned. The antidote that you carry with you can only slow down the effect of the attack. To really heal it, you still need to return to the Pokémon Center and give it to Miss Joy. Otherwise, the toxins will remain in the Pokémon's body, which will damage its health and will not be conducive to the improvement of the Pokémon's strength. So it is better to choose the way of 3 Pokémon together to solve the problem without worries. Even if Aishiwanzi was assisting on the side, because the level gap was too large, the intimidating effect of the snake's glare directly frightened Aishiwanzi and stopped using skills. But it doesn't matter, this situation has been known for a long time. The main attacking force in this battle is still Pidgeot and Brachydius. Arbok screamed while rushing towards Brachydius, moving forward in a snake-like manner to avoid damage as much as possible. There was no way it had consumed part of the venom when it was hunting just now, and it couldn't use the dissolving liquid for the time being. What's more, its most common method is to quickly strangle the opponent with its body after the opponent shrinks back and wait for the opponent's heartbeat to stop. The force it used when tightening was so strong that it could even flatten an iron barrel. Once entangled, it would be impossible to escape. Just let it get close to the opposite Pokémon. Looking at the position of Arbok, Aishiwanko, Tetsuya shouted, Dangoro. Aishiwanko understood. A piece of land on the path of Arbok's charge suddenly disappeared, revealing a deep hole. Arbok continued to move forward and fell directly into the hole. Strong Brokes, use Flame Burst. Pidgeot, use Storm. Without caring about being happy, Tetsuya hurriedly let his 2 Pokémon speed up their attacks. Aishiwanko, use Gravity to suppress it. Don't let it climb out so quickly. Dangoro. As Flame Burst and Storm rushed into the cave, the fire became stronger with the wind, and Arbok, who was originally trying to climb up against gravity, was completely beaten and lost his ability to fight. Tetsuya carefully let Pidgeot blow it away again, and after seeing that there was no movement in the cave, he walked forward and threw the Pokéball. Arbok struggled only twice before being subdued. He was relieved, after locking the Pokéball, to prevent Arbok from escaping. After it recovered a little, there was no other way. Pokémon like Arbok were natural predators. No trainer wanted to encounter them in the wild. Not only did they bear grudges, but they were also extremely poisonous, with great lethality and strength. The poisoned Pokémons had to be treated immediately. Of course, the greatest advantage of humans is the use of tools. Just now, ZHE was not idle when observing Arbok, and when it was hunting. Please invest, collect, recommend, and vote for the monthly ticket. I want anything! Exclamation mark. Thank you for the 100 starting coins from Yukon Kingming. Thank you for the 100 starting coins from Linyang0311. Thank you for the 500 starting coins from Shen Emoli. Thank you for the 500 starting coins from You Shall Not Fear Death Again Fighting for 100 Lifetimes of Reincarnation. Chapter 67 Continue to Search. The big hole that suddenly appeared on the road was the work of Tetsuya and the 3 Pokémons. Otherwise, if Arbok approached, Brachydon might be injured. It was all thanks to Ishiwanko, a rock-type Pokémon that was extremely talented in digging holes. Otherwise, it would not have been possible to dig a hole that could trap Arbok in such a short time. The layer of soil that originally covered the hole was also the work of Ishiwanko, who manipulated some sand and stones to cover it. Arbok probably did not fail to notice the energy fluctuations and may have treated this place as a quicksand hell, so it plunged directly into it. Following the traces left by the Arbok, Tetsuya touched its nest, a cave. Before entering the cave, Tetsuya smelled a strong fishy smell outside. He shook his head speechlessly, leaving Ishiwanko and Pidgeot outside, leaving Brachydon to follow him in. There was no way, the cave was too narrow, and the help provided by Pidgeot was too small, and Ishiwanzi is too weak, otherwise he would not be bringing Strong Chicken with him, but Mantle Rock or Giant Rock Monster. Zay put on the mask that came with his expedition suit, and also put on a special version for Strong Chicken, and then he and his pet went in. As soon as he entered the cave, even with the isolation of the mask, he felt that he also smelled a fishy smell, which might be psychological. Turning on the flashlight to illuminate the situation inside the cave, there were 2 snake skins that Arbok retreated. After a rough inspection, Zay's face suddenly collapsed. These 2 snake skins are not fresh snake skins. Even the snake skins that look relatively good have been there for at least half a month. In this case, it is not enough to support him to submit the task. In this case, he has to find the next Arbok. For such a powerful predator, there is often only one in a certain range. So it seems that his plan to return needs to be postponed for a while. After walking out of the cave with 2 snakes' laughs and a fang underneath them, Tetsuya took off his mask and breathed in the fresh air with Brachydon. This was really life-threatening, but at least it wasn't a complete loss. He threw the things into his backpack, walked to Pidgeot, and patted its wings. Please, Pidgeot, go to a farther place to look for Arbok as you did just now. Pidgeot nodded, spread his wings, and flew into the air. Tetsuya sat down with Ishiwanko Brachydon and began to rest. There was no other way. Although Pidgeot was very fast and had a wide field of vision, it would definitely be able to find Arbok in the first place if it appeared. But there was a premise here, that is, Arbok appeared. Generally speaking, a normal predation is enough for Arbok to survive for several days. Usually, they will stay in their nests and not come out. Even Pidgeot may not be able to find it. This one was considered lucky for him. Someone in the forum had posted a warning that there was an Arbok here before, reminding trainers with insufficient strength not to approach. He saw this news and came here to try. Others are not like him. They can roughly know the level of wild Pokémon, so they avoid Pokémon like Arbok, fearing that something might happen to them. Strong Chicken squatted down out of boredom and started to tease Shiwanzi. Shiwanzi said that he was already grown up and didn't want to make trouble with you. In the quiet and peaceful environment, Zay thought that this kind of life was not bad. After more than half an hour, Pidgeot still didn't come back. It was probably still searching. Looking at the time, it was already noon, so he hurriedly took out the pots and pans in the space backpack and started to prepare lunch. He took out 2 peach fruits and a special rock, held 1 peach fruit in his mouth, and threw the other one to Strong Chicken. The special rock was Shiwanzi's appetizer. Strong Chicken held the peach fruit with his 2 claws and started to eat it. Although fire Pokémon prefer spicy food, they generally won't refuse the sweet peach fruit as their pre-meal dessert. Zay also took a bite of the peach fruit himself, which was indeed sweet enough. This is what he asked for when he asked the owner of the fruit shop to order it. After all, he studied fruit science before and has a clear understanding of quality. If the fruit in that shop is not of good quality, he would not choose to buy it. First, he began to prepare the special rock ratio for the stone balls. The formula for lunch today is 10% red rock, 25% frozen rock, 40% hard rock, and various miscellaneous materials. After weighing, just put them together. The stone balls will absorb them by themselves. He put the giant rock monster food bowl in front of the stone balls and started eating very skillfully. Strong Chicken tugged at Zay's clothes with his claws. Chap, wait a minute, I'm making it, ZHE said with a bad smile. Strong Chicken's food is relatively simple. Chocolate and spicy cherry fruit are mixed in a ratio of 2:1, plus some spicy energy cubes as the staple food, with a large bottle of milk and other nutritional tablets. To be honest, Zay's heart was trembling when mixing chocolate and spicy cherry fruit. To be frank, it costs money to raise a high qualified Pokémon. Because of the special nature of the cultivation direction, Shiwanzi spent about 50,000 to 60,000 alliance coins on this meal. And because of the high qualifications of the Strong Chicken, the tree fruit required for feeding is relatively expensive. From the beginning, the ratio of spicy cherry fruit to chocolate fruit was 3:1, then 1:1, and now, the ratio of chocolate fruit to spicy cherry fruit has become 2:1. The cost has increased by almost 60%. Considering its increased appetite, the price of this meal is about 120,000. 2 meals a day, more than 7 million a month, not to mention the other recipes needed for training. I rubbed the head of the Strong Chicken, handed it the flame chicken rice bowl and a spoon, and it sat next to Shiwanzi with the rice bowl and started eating. Next is the food for Pidgeot, which is mainly composed of ridged melon fruit and light berry that increase the energy of the flying system and the general system, and other various materials are mixed together as a supplement, and also with a large bottle of milk, which is considered a meal. It was probably around 100,000 yuan. ZHE felt that what he prepared was not food, but diamonds from his previous life. He took out a frying pan and a steak, took out a simple stove, and called out to Lishuangji. Lishuangji quickly swallowed the food in his mouth, ran to the side happily, and spit out a small spark, successfully igniting the flame. ZHE also waved his hand, and ran back to Shiwanzi's side happily, and sat down to start eating. He also shook his head in annoyance. This guy. Please invest, collect, recommend, and vote. I ask for anything. Exclamation mark. Thank you 196 for the 100 starting coins. Thank you Mr. Linesky for the 100 starting coins. PS. Let me reiterate, Shugo just borrowed it because he was too lazy to think of a name, so don't ask why the effect is different. It's available at 9 PM on weekends. Chapter 68, Pidgeot's Experience. He casually fried the composite steak in the pan, and when it was about 70% cooked, he began to plate it, and then put some black pepper and chili on it. In this life, he particularly likes spicy food, and he likes to put some chili on everything. He tasted it, and nodded with satisfaction. Zay has lived a single life for 40 years in 2 lives. I dare not say anything else, but he is a good cook. After eating, he looked at the time. Almost an hour has passed, which is enough for his Pidgeot to run more than 2,000 kilometers. The Sarbok monster is really hard to find. Just thinking about it, a few familiar calls came from above. Beep. Looking up, Zay squinted unconsciously. The sunlight at noon was too strong. A black shadow fell quickly, blowing up countless dust. Without Zay's instructions, Shiwanzi, who had finished his meal, consciously controlled the dust to fall. Pidgeot's strong chest muscles rose and fell slightly. For it just needed to pay more attention to the ground than the usual warm-up exercises. It was not weighted, so it was relatively easy. It's just that I'm a little hungry at lunchtime. With the lunch that he had prepared long ago, Tetsuya came to Pidgeot and put it down. Pidgeot also started eating immediately, and Tetsuya gently tidied its feathers that were a little messy due to flying for a long time. Speaking of which, he and Pidgeot have lived together for almost 2 years. He sighed. Unknowingly, it has grown so big. The evolution of creatures like Pokémon is really amazing. After Pidgeot finished lunch, he temporarily put aside the matter of Arbok and let Strong Chicken burn his paper plates directly, leaving no residue. At the same time, he rinsed the tabloa and frying pans of the 3 Pokémon with stream water, and also disinfected them directly with Strong Chicken's flame. Fire Pokémon, a must-have in the kitchen. If it is matched with water and grass Pokémon, it will be a one-stop service. Water provides water, grass provides food, and fire is responsible for cooking. Tetsuya thought with a strange look on his face. Could this be how the big three Pokémon came about? He shook his head and threw out this ridiculous idea. He could only say that the genetic imprint of the foodie country in his previous life was too deep, and he could not forget the important matter of eating, no matter where he went. After cleaning up all the things on the spot, and the three Pokémons also recovered, he began to ask Pidgeot about Arbok. Beep, beep. As Pidgeot told him, he finally understood what Pidgeot had been doing for the past hour. The following is a first-person perspective of Pidgeot. I, Pidgeot, the king of the sky, no matter how big, yellow, or green, can catch me. Today, the task assigned to me by the trainer is to find an Arbok. It's so funny, isn't this a matter of catching it with claws? It's just a small snake, it can be caught easily. The one just now was, and I, a bird, could defeat it. But the trainer said something about the dog's way, and we three had to go together, and none of our Pokémons are dogs. It's really strange equals asterisk, alas, who makes him the boss. I've been flying for a while, but I haven't seen a single snake. It's summer now, don't these young people come out to exercise? It's good for your health, don't you know? There's nothing here either. Hello, is there a snake down there? If there is, please reply. Thank you. Hello, you're here, little brother. Come and play. What? Are you licking another Arbok? You're a poor snake. Stop licking it. It's useless, and she's not pretty. Why are you angry? Don't spit at me. I'll slap you. The above is purely Pidgeot's inner monologue. The version that Tetsuya heard was very simple. Pidgeot found an Arbok after circling in the air for more than half an hour. However, there was a female Arbok next to this Arbok, and Pidgeot provoked it in the air, so he came back so late. Before leaving, Pidgeot gave each of the two snakes an air slash. Tetsuya nodded slightly. An Arbok and an Arbok? Not a big problem. After asking Pidgeot if he had seen the location of their nest, he stood there and began to ponder. After getting a positive answer, he believed Pidgeot's provocation. He certainly knew how talkative and annoying his Pidgeot was. It could be said that it was brawn that led brawn astray. After looking at the surrounding terrain, Zay quickly came up with a plan. He first walked towards the direction Pidgeot said for a while. He asked Aishiwanko to dig several pits of varying depths in the direction where Pidgeot said Arbok was, and then buried several quicksand hells next to them to cover them up. At the same time, he ordered Pidgeot to find a way to attract hatred and lead the two snakes to the trap. He, Aishiwanko and Brawn hid on top of a huge rock nearby and began to hide. When Pidgeot heard this, he loved to do it. He flapped his wings and quickly flew to the place where he had just encountered Arbok. He provoked Arbok and Arbok Snake in Elvish, and soon the two elves were overwhelmed by anger. Even though they couldn't fly, they began to chase Pidgeot below. Pidgeot deliberately slowed down his speed, and at the same time, he continued to stimulate them, and from time to time he used wind and blow to create some obstacles for them. The pain in his body intensified Arbok's anger, and it was completely focused on Pidgeot. As the three Pokémon gradually approached the location of the trap, Tetsuya signaled Aishiganko and Strong Chicken to prepare for the attack. Bang! A huge monster and another slightly petite snake Pokémon fell into the first trap. He signaled the two Pokémon around him not to attack for the time being. Soon, Arbok came up first with its own strength and body. With its full anger, it madly sprayed dissolving liquid and venom at Pidgeot, completely ignoring its goddess who was still behind. Bang! There was another loud noise. Arbok fell into the second larger hole. Tetsuya waved his hand, and the gravity of Aishiganko immediately blessed Arbok and Arbok Snake below, pressing them down and preventing them from breaking free. The brute used the big word explosion and jet flame to attack in turn, and Pidgeot also understood and used the air slash to slash them. It was as if it was a replica of the previous battle, and it was easy to make Arbok and Arbok lose their fighting ability. ZHE also threw two Pokeballs, and this time they didn't even resist, and they were directly subdued. He exhaled a breath, and this mission should be completed. Looking at the skin of this Arbok, it seems that it has just shed its skin. Fortunately, there is no record of the survival of the Spearow tribe and toucans in this area, otherwise Pidgeot would not be so relaxed and reckless. Let Pidgeot lead the way to the Arbok's nest, and pray secretly that he must not be allowed to look for it again. He is not sure whether the next Arbok will take more than 2 hours to find, and he will be able to go back in time for dinner. My luck should not be so bad, right? Please invest, collect, recommend, and vote for the monthly ticket. I want everything! Exclamation mark. Thank you for giving Serona 100 starting coins. Doge. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69. It's easy to make money if you have the ability. After walking out of the nest, ZHE was relieved. He was lucky. There was a freshly shed snakeskin. He threw all the things into the backpack and stroked his chin. Speaking of which, this place is quite suitable for finding Arbok to make money. But there are probably only 2 Arbok in this area, and their territory is still relatively large. It's a pity that Pidgeot can't be asked to look for it in the forest, otherwise it will be more efficient. There are not many sky elves in this area, so it can be done this way. Back to the town. Go to the trading center to sell a few not so fresh snakeskins. 1 Arbok snakeskin that is about half a month old is worth 150 alliance coins per gram. Here is 1182 grams, totaling 177,300 alliance coins. Then there are 2 Arbok snakeskins that are about a month old, worth 100 alliance coins per gram. There are a total of 32 grams here, totaling 203,200 alliance coins. The total is 380,500 alliance coins. The staff quoted the price skillfully and sighed. You are quite capable. It seems that you did the mission numbered 0519. You actually got so much extra income. They smiled and replied a few times. He was lucky and turned to leave with the money. He came to the appraisal department of the Bounty Hunter Center and took out the only fresh Arbok snakes left for the staff to appraise. For items like this long-term mission that has quality requirements, they must be appraised before they can be submitted manually to obtain income. The income will vary depending on the quality. Zay can judge it himself, but people who are not official will not recognize it. With the report form given by the appraisal staff, he went back to the manual service place to submit the mission. After swiping the identity card, the mission income was automatically transferred to the bound account. After checking, 400,000 alliance coins, a very good price. Fortunately the second Arbok just shed its skin, otherwise it would be a blessing to get 300,000 with its average strength. He walked out of the hunter center with a happy mood and looked at the message sent by the watch. His leaf stone had been received by Xiao Gang. At the same time, Miss Joy from the Pokémon Center also reminded him that a package had arrived at the Pokémon Center and was stored in the locker. He could go and collect it later with his ID card. It was a triple blessing, although it was a bit far-fetched. He also went to the black market to sell the 3 little snakes, 1 elite and 2 ordinary. Because of the special nature of the race, they were only sold for 3.2 million. He earned nearly 4 million today. It was really easy to make money with strong strength. Although ZHE only had 2 elite level Pokémons, considering his strength, he was indeed strong. According to the report given by the Alliance, 60% of the currently registered civilian trainers are novice trainers, 35% are ordinary trainers, and the remaining 5% are elite trainers and above. Among the ordinary trainers, nearly 80% only have ordinary level Pokémons, and no elite level Pokémons. Don't think this data seems a bit exaggerated. Take an ordinary person as an example. He completes all the basic knowledge learning at around the age of 10, and then begins to learn advanced knowledge. This is the first threshold. Most people do not have enough grades or even the qualifications to study. They can only do the most basic work like their predecessors. It is not a problem to get enough food and clothing in the Alliance system, but it is certainly not a good life. Not to mention owning a Pokémon. Even this is not allowed if the grades are too poor. The next step is to complete the school graduation. If your grades are good enough, you can learn an advanced knowledge. This second threshold can be completed in 4 years for the fastest and 6 years for the slowest. You must know that not everyone is as gifted as ZHE. Of course, if you complete this advanced knowledge and graduate, it means that you have enough means to make a living, and it is not a problem to live a relatively rich life. You also have the qualifications to become a trainer. Yes, it is just a qualification, and it does not mean that you are a trainer at this time. First, you need a Pokémon. The ways to get a Pokémon can be summarized as follows. 1. The offspring of your parents' Pokémon. 2. Spend money to buy it on the black market. 3. Go to the official breeding house to receive it directly after the alliance confirms the qualifications. 4. Go to the wild to gamble your life. The first and fourth methods are the most common. Of course, most people who choose the latter died in the wild and never came back. The problem with the former is that your parents' Pokémon may also be green caterpillars with low potential. The second and third methods both require your family to have a certain amount of financial resources, and the second one is relatively easy. The qualification for the third method is different from that of the 3 starter Pokémons. It is based on the taxes paid by your parents and the background of whether your family has a criminal record. If the tax payment reaches the quota and your family is clean, you can receive a random Pokémon with at least ordinary potential, of course, the common ones. But does choosing a Pokémon mean that you have become a trainer? Not really. You should know that not all Pokémon can evolve, whether once or twice. This involves the potential of the Pokémon itself, and the problem of your cultivation method. If a Pokémon can be cultivated very well, just because it has enough potential and proper nutrition, then what is the meaning of the profession of breeder? Improper cultivation methods will damage the potential of Pokémons, and there are even precise requirements for the quantity and quality of feeding food. Otherwise, your green caterpillar may always be just a baby, and it can't even become a pupa. The Alliance will not teach you these methods. After all, there is no breeder option in advanced education. The reason why some elves in the wild can evolve is also due to long-term habits, and the efficiency is relatively low. In fact, this can also explain why most trainers start to cultivate elves from eggs, because most elves in the wild have basically fixed their potential and strength when they evolve to their final form. Let's get back to the point. So at the beginning, most people face a situation that, although they have elves, they cannot cultivate them, and their elf strength has not made any progress. Even because of their own messing around, the potential of the elves has declined, and they have completely lost the possibility of progress. Therefore, only a small number of lucky people, relying on the high qualifications of their elves or their own talents, have broken through this limit. But even so, it is inevitable that there is a great waste and destruction of the potential of the elves. ZHE, who has 0, has actually been ahead of many people at the starting point. Of course, the above situation is not aimed at or applicable to those family children. They not only start to learn knowledge at home in advance, but also learn more than ordinary people. At the same time, the strong people in the family will tell him how to cultivate one or several specific elves. They will also start to practice earlier. In short, this world even seems a little deformed because of the appearance of the elves, and the channels for upward mobility are extremely scarce. But overall, it is gradually getting better. Please invest, please collect, please recommend, please vote for the monthly ticket. I ask for everything! Exclamation mark. Thank you Zyadax in lack of oxygen for the 500 starting coins. PS. The chapter at 5 PM today was delayed to 6:30 PM. Chapter 70, Fighting the Waves at Sunset. In recent years, due to the reforms of Chairman Damalanchi, things have actually improved a lot. Before that, the status of the Alliance was more like a formality, and those big families were the real masters of the Alliance. Since Chairman Damalanchi, who was born a commoner, came to power, he used his powerful strength to suppress the family and made drastic changes to some policies, which led to the emergence of more and more commoner geniuses in recent years. Zay is actually the best example. You must know that before that, you could only choose one advanced knowledge, and there was no such thing as choosing 3, let alone reducing tuition fees. Without the knowledge system support of the 3 disciplines of elf science, pharmacology, and fruit science, it would be difficult for Zay to cultivate elves at the beginning. Then his life trajectory in the past few years may change dramatically again. But this is not a problem that Zay can care about for the time being, and he does not have enough strength to get involved. Shaking his head and cheering up, he began to head to the training ground of Cape White. He was very curious about what kind of model it was that made so many trainers flocked to this place. After walking for a long time, until the pure white sand could no longer be seen, and the surrounding area was full of black reefs, ZHE also saw the so-called training ground. Suddenly, a huge gap appeared in the coastline in front of him, which looked golden under the setting sun. The waves that did not seem high at the water inlet suddenly turned into fierce tides under the compression of the gap and rushed in. It was the time of high tide, and the fierce tide in the distance even reached a height of more than 10 meters. Even so, this was not the place where the tide was the most violent. Further away, on the cliffs, the ocean currents there were still pushing the tide to stir up bigger waves. The elves were scattered at various locations on the beach according to their different abilities. The weak ones stayed back and trained themselves by resisting those smaller waves. The strong ones went deep into the sea and improved their abilities with the strong water pressure and the impact of the tide. Looking around, there were only a few dozen elves who were still training here at this time. The most eye-catching thing was a huge Gyarados that was looming under the sea in the distance. Looking vaguely, you can still see it using powerful skills to ferociously pounce on the waves, then sink into them, and reappear after a while to fight against the power of nature, over and over again. There is also a Yanjara that is particularly conspicuous, with a wave of the spoon in his hand, his eyes emit dazzling blue light, and he screamed and used a telekinetic trick. A large wave in front of it suddenly stopped abruptly, then lost power, and scattered into water splashes hitting the rocks on the beach. A white beam of light flashed by. It was a 3-in-1 magneto next to it that used a cannon beam to violently destroy the waves. The trainers who were paying attention to their own Pokémon also focused some of their attention on Zaya, who had just arrived. This time point is when the waves are the most turbulent. Miss Joy's manual has introduced that it is not recommended for trainers with average strength to come for training. They are very curious about the strength of this new face. Zaya also felt their gazes, and the scene of the Pokémon fighting against nature in front of him also made his blood boil. But his natural character made him calm down for a moment. He used Zero to call up the plan and confirm that Pidgeot could indeed be trained here. Only then did he feel at ease to release Pidgeot. Beep. After Pidgeot came out, it spread its wings and cried. The loud voice and the larger size than its peers made the trainers nearby know immediately that this Pokémon must be strong. He called Pidgeot to his side and told him the training method and the focus of today, and asked it to pay more attention to safety. ZHE also withdrew to the safer area nearby and stayed with other trainers. If he was caught in the waves, it would not be a joke. Although his physical fitness was so good that swimming was no problem, the waves here could kill people if they fell directly. Looking at the figure of Pidgeot flying quickly and low over the sea level, he was still a little worried. After all, Pidgeot was not a water Pokémon. If he was really caught in it, it would be a troublesome thing. Now he just hoped that it would be more careful. As the waves of the previous wave gradually subsided, the next wave began to sweep in from a distance. The waves on the horizon seemed to be connected into a white line, covering part of the afterglow of the setting sun. The whole world seemed to be dim, and the waves were like a canopy, covering the sky. The waves I saw in Kaientang River in my previous life were just like this. The natural power of this world is even more exaggerated because of creatures like elves, because you don't know whether the tide was caused by just a powerful elf turning over on the seabed. Pidgeot was covered with white light and rushed up to the waves. Beep. Pidgeot's sharp cry came through the sky. ZHE also looked at it nervously. This time, according to the plan given by Zero, the main focus is to train Pidgeot's Brave Bird skills. Because Pidgeot's Brave Bird has not been used many times since it was comprehended, whether it is the speed of condensing energy or the quality, it is not as handy as other skills. What's more, above Brave Bird, there is the more powerful Divine Bird skill. If Pidgeot can't even control Brave Bird now, it will be almost impossible for him to learn Divine Bird in the future. There is no so-called skill machine in this world. Most Pokémon will gradually master some common skills as their qualifications or levels improve. Similarly, those skills that are not common to them, or those with greater power or more difficult skills need Pokémon who can teach them. For example, the grass field of the grass type, and the trick space, etc. Basically, if a Pokémon has enough qualifications and this skill is within the range it can learn, that is, in the so-called skill table, it can generally be learned in 3 or 4 days. Robidon's Rock Slide is such an example. When fighting with Racy before, Robidon used Rock Slide and stunned him for a while. Because of the skill of Rock Slide, Pokémon like Robidon can indeed learn it, but not many can do it. ZHE also specially asked Zyadagang to help teach Robidon this move. His Onix is a master of Rock Slide. As for Aishiwan's Rock Slide, forget it, it's still a child. Learning this kind of skill is mainly to increase the attack surface of one's own attributes to prevent having no means to target some special opponents. While Zaya was still daydreaming, Pidgeot had already rushed into the huge waves with a strong momentum and energy fluctuations. He quickly tightened his mind and looked behind the waves. The world seemed to be quiet in an instant. Please invest, collect, recommend, and vote for me. I want anything! Exclamation mark. Thanks to Meiji Ankak for the 500 starting coins. PS. There was no update at 9 o'clock tonight due to an emergency. I will make up a chapter next week. I'm very sorry. Chapter 71 planned delay. The sun gradually descended from the sea level to the ground, and the fiery red color of the sunset gradually faded. The tide gradually subsided. Pidgeot, with a wet and tired body, panted and landed beside Tetsuya. Tetsuya patted its wings with satisfaction, took out a towel, and wiped it briefly. In more than 2 hours of training, Pidgeot's control over Brave Bird has almost improved with the naked eye. From the beginning, it just barely broke through the waves for the first time, and even lost its balance after going out, which made Tetsuya's heart tremble. After all, this is also his first time to use the power of nature to train, and it is not like before. It can be controlled by machines. At the end, Pidgeot was able to break through part of the wave. The energy of Brave Bird opened up a part of the middle part of the wave, allowing him to rush out smoothly. Of course, Tetsuya knew that this was just the beginning, and Pidgeot's control was far from enough. At present, it can only be regarded as a very elementary stage at most. The next goal is to let Pidgeot use Brave Bird to break an entire wave, just like the 3-in-1 Magneto did just now. After completing this goal, it is necessary to further compress the energy of Brave Bird's skills, and finally let the energy gather on the surface, passing through and smashing at least 3 waves in an instant. This last step not only requires the mastery of energy, but also has extremely high requirements for balance, speed, and timing. ZHE also hopes that Pidgeot will do his best in the estimated 1.5 months here, and master it to the extent that he can. Yes, he plans to stay here for about 1.5 months, and extend the plan. Although Ishimaruko only needs sufficient energy supply in the early stage due to its own special nature, and does not need too much additional training, it is unrealistic to improve to the level of evolving into Mantle Rock in a short period of time. Not to mention the next step of the evolution of Panyan Monster. As for the strong chicken, even though it is only a few levels away from evolution, it is not just eating to evolve, but also needs to be cultivated in other aspects. It is also necessary to do a little preparation for the evolved form in advance. Judging from the speed at which Pidgeot evolved into Pidgeot, it will take about a month. Well, to explain it with a simple number, he still has 6.9 million on him now, but if he does nothing this month, he will probably be in debt of about 1 or 2 million. You know, this is because he spent 8 million in advance to prepare a special rock for Aishiwanzi. That is barely enough for about 2 months. Otherwise, how can we say that a real trainer is a costly profession? If it weren't for the 50% discount at the Nabi Gym and the most efficient training method he and Zero used, it would be much more than this. ZHE also estimated that, if an average person wanted to achieve the same effect as him, it would probably cost more than 60 million. As for the fact that he spent 20 million like himself and didn't get any results, it was ridiculous, just dreaming about it. He said that I am so awesome and so willful. Of course, there is another reason why he can stay here for so long. That is, He just took a look at the tasks of the Bounty Hunter Guild. He found that it might be because there are many trainers gathered, so many people would choose to release high-level tasks here as the first place, and there are many, which is profitable. As for challenging gyms and getting badges to participate in the competition, he was not in a hurry. It was nothing more than going to a city to challenge a gym and leave, including the time for traveling, making appointments, and resting. A gym can be completed in 3 or 4 days. If everything goes well, the remaining 7 badges can be collected in a month. Before, I thought that I would stay in each city for a while to grab tasks and make money. Now I can train and make money here. The lack of badges is not a major problem at all. While thinking about the plan for the next month, Zaya cleaned Pidgeot's body. The trainers next to him behaved the same way as him. Everyone took care of their own Pokémon with all their heart and responsibility. There are naturally many bad people in the Pokémon world, but even if they have done all the bad things, most people are extremely caring for their Pokémon. Many people cannot accept some bad remarks or behaviors, so people will be educated for expressing opinions like Racy on the boat that day, even if what he said is also a reality. In a sense, the people in this world are also very cute. The busy Zaya smiled. After getting used to it for so long, he was very happy that he came to this world. Although it was different from the memory of his previous life, it was more vivid and real here. It was just that he would miss the past occasionally. As he cleaned, Pidgeot couldn't help but let out a comfortable cry and rubbed his huge head against Zaya's chest. He stroked the beautiful head feathers on Pidgeot's head, which felt very good and smooth, and then pushed it away. "Stop it, I'm still doing business," he warned the Pidgeot, who was still trying to be naughty with his eyes, and it immediately bent down and stood on the ground obediently. After a while, he clapped his hands and Zaya breathed a sigh of relief. He finally finished the cleaning. This was a strenuous job and the workload was not small. It's not just wiping it clean, otherwise Pidgeot can directly dry itself with hot air, and it needs careful care. For example, observe the density of feathers on both sides, whether the trainer needs to intervene manually, and whether the length and sharpness of the claws are in line with the combat habits and need to be adjusted. These must be paid attention to one by one. It is also necessary for the elves to keep their bodies clean. In addition to their own health, the bond that the trainer builds with the elves in this process is more important. Of course, these are not to be done every day. Basically, a part of the content is completed regularly or quantitatively every day. ZHE also just moved up the care time today. The size of Pidgeot is not that big. The trainer of Gyarados next to him is still brushing bitterly. It seems that he has only completed less than half of the cleaning goal for today. Looking at the other party's sweaty appearance, ZHE seemed to foresee that he would clean up the giant rock monster and even more giant elves in the future. He grinned and smiled silently, then he retracted the Pidgeot and turned away. "As long as I don't see it, I won't imagine it. I'll talk about the future later. It's shameful to escape, but it's useful for now." He is also rushing back to prepare food for the 3 elves in the evening, so they can't be hungry. Well, he definitely didn't leave to escape reality. The Gyarados trainer happened to look up at ZHE's departing back and thought that this guy left in a hurry. He wanted to communicate with him. "Please invest, please collect, please recommend, please vote. I want anything!" Exclamation mark. Thank you Mew for the 200 starting coins. Thank you Riri Leng for the 3000 starting coins. Chapter 72 Daily Life. After returning to the Pokémon Center, ZHE first went to the guest room department and talked to a Miss Joy inside and extended his stay to 40 days. While the Pokémons were still recovering at Miss Joy's place, he took out several of his packages, put them into his space backpack, and carried them into the room one by one. Even though the black technology space backpack can reduce the weight of objects to a certain extent and facilitate transportation, and his own strength can be said to be no problem to punch a boxing champion in his previous life after long-term training, it still took him 4 or 5 times to move the rock worth 8 million. Then he thanked Miss Joy as usual and took back the Pokeballs of the 3 Pokémons who had recovered. He took them back to his room, and before he had time to sit down and rest, he began to prepare dinner for the 3 Pokémons. The proportion of the recipe for Ishiganko needs to change at night due to the different types of rocks, but it is the simplest one. For strong chicken, the supply of some energy blocks needs to be reduced accordingly, and different tree fruits need to be matched into salads to prevent being tired of eating. Some of the chocolate fruits also need to be replaced with lotus fruits. The proportion needs to be readjusted, and the auxiliary materials also need to be changed. Pidgeot makes certain adjustments to the original recipe proportions of the ridged melon fruit and the light berry according to the afternoon training situation. Other auxiliary materials also need to change the proportions accordingly, and then add some bone meal and vitamins. To be honest, if it weren't for the zero sorting plan, it would be possible for Tetsuya to do these things by himself, but it would be more difficult and brain consuming, and it would not be so comprehensive. After finishing these, another hour passed, and Tetsuya called the 3 Pokémon who had been lined up next to him, and looked at him eagerly to eat. With the trainer's approval, the 3 guys of different sizes came to the rice bowls of their final forms like lightning and started eating. At this time, they still couldn't rest, because he had to check the physical condition of Xuanzi and Lisangji to prevent any problems from the afternoon battle. Although he had already replied to Miss Joy, he still had to check it himself to feel at ease. He walked around the 2 little ones who were eating, as if no one was around, and carefully observed things such as Xuanzi's core, the condition of the body connection, Lisangji's leg muscle lines, the development of the 3 bristles on his head, and other places. Combined with the report given by Zero, he was relieved, after it was clear that there was no problem. At this time, Zay just started to solve his own dinner. Dinner was provided by the Elf Center, and someone delivered it. The plates and other things only needed to be put into a special cleaning pipe. Well, today it was curry synthetic beef with 2 vegetables and white rice, plus a portion of hot milk prepared by Zay himself, which was very good. What? You asked how to heat the milk? Look at the feathers of Lisangji lying next to him after dinner. That's the best place to heat it. With elf technology, there is no need for a stove or microwave. Anyway, whenever Tetsuya wanted to drink hot milk from a big milk can, he would just hold it in his arms to heat it up. It would only take 2 minutes. As a fire-type Pokémon, Tetsuya's body temperature is very high. If it wasn't always controlled, the heat it emits would be enough to kill a person. When raising an ice-type Pokémon in the future, there would be no need for a refrigerator to freeze it. Just breathe it out. Throwing the used dishes into the cleaning pipe, Tetsuya went to the ground. Pidgeot was lying on the ground to rest when he saw his trainer fall on his soft body. Pidgeot moved his wings slightly to prevent himself from slapping his trainer and closed his eyes again. The training just now really exhausted him. Although he was tired before, it was the first time he was so exhausted. Tetsuya rested his head slightly on Pidgeot's belly. This was one of his dreams in his previous life, and he did it almost every day in this life. Of course, it would be more comfortable if it was replaced with Snorlax, but unfortunately it is really unaffordable. Even with energy blocks, Snorlax's food intake is no joke. Strong Chicken leaned on the sofa, lazily stroking his full belly, burping from time to time. It was a little full. Xuanzi sensed this side and that side, and found that he had nothing to do, so he jumped directly onto the platform. He retracted his horns and 2 legs, and turned directly into a plain blue rock, and began to rest. In this state, Xuanzi, although resting, will be more sensitive to the surrounding environment. As long as there is any danger approaching, he will unfold his body to prepare to meet the enemy or escape. Of course, there is generally no danger in the Pokémon Center. This is mainly because Tetsuya let Xuanzi develop a habit of vigilance to prevent any unexpected situations in the wild in the future. Zaya turned on his watch and put on his headphones. He had not yet completed his study tasks for today. He had to write 3 papers, watch 2 full member battle videos, review the 3rd chapter of the breeder exam, study the additional materials provided by the Nabi Gym, and so on. As the moonlight quietly hung in the sky, the outside of the room at the Pokémon Center gradually fell into peace. From the outside, the lights in each room went out one by one, falling into the darkness of the night. Only a few rooms had lights on all the time. It was a silent night. Zaya's biological clock, which had been developed over the years, woke him up very regularly when the sun was about to go to work. He stretched his waist and climbed out of bed carefully. The 3 Pokémons woke up very quickly at the same time. Ishigaki stretched out his horns and legs and stood up. The 2 claws that were resting on the back of the head of the strong chicken were also placed on the chest. Pidgeot opened his eyes and tilted his head to move. Zaire smiled at them and walked straight into the bathroom to start his morning washing work. When he came out, the 3 little ones who were already familiar with the route had already stretched their bodies and were ready to start warming up this morning. Brachydon wanted to run with him for exercise. Of course, it was weighted. The weighted clothes prepared before were almost at their maximum limit. It was estimated that they would need to be replaced after the evolution, which was another big expense. Moreover, he couldn't keep up with Brachydon at the moment. It sounded nice to say that they were running together, but in fact, Brachydon's exercise distance in the morning was far ahead of Zay. It was mainly to cultivate the bond between the trainer and the Pokémon. After all, training together will always make the Pokémon feel more deeply. Then there was Pidgeot. The same weighted flight was given to it, and it was left to go by itself. After all, it wouldn't fly with it, so there was nothing we could do. The last one, Ishimaru, followed obediently beside him. The task given to him by Zay was to practice his gravity skills and control energy. With a snap of his fingers, Zay and the 3 Pokémon set off. Please invest, please collect, please recommend, please vote for the monthly ticket. I want anything! Exclamation mark. Thanks to bookfriend 2021033016535746 for the reward of 300 Kidian coins. Chapter 73 Training. The first rays of sunlight in the morning emerged from the sea level. Tetsuya and Strong Chicken kept running along the beach. Pay attention to your breathing. Running on the beach will make you more tired. Pay attention to the strength of your buttocks, hamstrings, hip flexors and legs. Pay attention to different roll angles when turning back and adjusting your body. He reminded Strong Chicken. Although Pokémon can adjust themselves during daily exercise, it will be slow and cannot reach the most scientific and reasonable state at once. One of the main tasks of a trainer is to tell Pokémon how to adjust as quickly as possible, so as to achieve the purpose of training and warm up. After turning back and forth 7 or 8 times to complete his warm up, he waved his hand, signaling Strong Chicken to continue, and returned to Ishiwanzi. Strong Chicken's powerful legs ran like crazy and left in a cloud of dust. Entering the range of Ishiwanzi's gravity skill, Tetsuya felt that all parts of his body, including his internal organs, were squeezed to a certain extent. After feeling it, he nodded slightly. Ishiwanzi's gravity effect has gone a step further than before. It is estimated that when the evolution is almost complete, the second stage of gravity skill training can be carried out. After instructing Shiwanzi to rest for a while, after practicing gravity manipulation for 30 minutes, he gave Shiwanzi a new training task. Although Shiwanzi did not move, Zhe, who was familiar with it, knew that it had hurt him, so he continued to exercise his body at ease. After more than half an hour, when Pidgeot and Strong Chicken returned to the beach, after completing their warm-up, he stopped and arranged today's tasks one by one. Pidgeot, your task this morning is to master various skill combinations. Fly close to the sea surface. Use steel wings or wing attacks and the wind pressure generated by your speed to separate the sea water. Create some waves artificially, then use tornadoes to rotate the water, and then use air to cut it open. If you encounter naturally formed high waves, try to use Brave Bad to break through them like yesterday. After that, there is the problem of confusing the shadow clone and the stand. You need to. Ishiwanzi, after you have rested, try to use your sand power characteristics to feel the properties and flow of sand. Sand is essentially a rock. Use the quicksand hell method to control part of the sand to exercise your abilities, and then there is the problem of invisible rock. Strong Chicken, you are training explosive power today, just like usual, but the venue has been changed to sand. Pay attention to the same points as when running just now. Do not hurt your body, and pay attention to the strength. You still need to improve the degree of cohesion of the jet flame and the big character explosion. The specific points are: afterwards, let Pidgeot cooperate with you to complete the hot air training. During the process, pay attention to the accuracy of the release range and the control of the temperature. After arranging the training content for this morning in one breath, Zay was a little dry in the mouth. Motioning Pidgeot to start training at a slightly farther place, he took out a bottle of water from the backpack next to him and drank it first. Strong Chicken obediently fixed the equipment used to train explosive power on himself and began to sprint on the sand again and again. Zay also observed from the side. After correcting a few minor mistakes, Strong Chicken's force generating method has begun to be perfected. The next step is boring repetitive movements. Putting on swimming trunks, he ran to a relatively calm place on the side and plunged into the sea to start swimming. Swimming as a form of exercise can soothe the mood, help promote blood circulation, and while relaxing the muscles, it can also help reduce the pressure that the muscles need to bear and enhance cardiopulmonary function. The key is to involve the muscles of the whole body without adding weight to the joints. As time went by and the sun got hotter, more and more people came to the beach, many of whom were trainers like Zaya who were training their own elves. Everyone had a tacit understanding to divide up a place for themselves. The originally quiet environment began to become noisy, and one could vaguely hear the trainers' instructions and training for their elves. Different personal habits will also lead to different training methods. For example, Zaya was used to arranging all the tasks and letting the elves train themselves. Some trainers prefer to refine the training step by step and accompany the elves at all times. The training time passed quickly, and in a blink of an eye it seemed that the sun that had just come out was already hanging high in the sky. It was spring, but it was already a bit hot. After swimming, Zaya wiped his body, took out the things in his backpack, and started to prepare lunch for the 3 elves. The afternoon training was still boring and difficult. As a trainer, he had to do a good job of logistics at all times. It is difficult to define the relationship between trainers and elves. They are like partners, friends, and family, but this does not affect their feelings. The smell of fireworks around gradually became thicker, and the beach was full of trainers and elves eating. Replenishing energy and physical strength is an essential part of becoming stronger. As the sun set, watching the waves coming again, ZHE called Ishigaki and Brachycephalus back to his side. Most of the trainers who were not strong enough also began to withdraw, knowing that their elves were not strong enough to deal with it. The trainers who were stubborn and wanted to try it, and their elves had long been swept into the ocean and drifted away with the ocean currents. This scene was not suitable for Brachycephalus and Ishigaki, but the elf balls could not be taken back. They had to watch the scene of Pidgeot fighting against the great power of nature. This would help increase their desire to become stronger. After all, the pursuit of strength may come from the subconscious or genetic desire for safety, but it is not long-lasting or grand enough. Trainers have to give them a clear goal. When they all evolve into their final form, ZHE also feels that they can achieve the same result as Pidgeot. Sure enough, looking at Pidgeot's heroic posture, the eyes of the sturdy chicken seemed to emit light, and the taciturn Ishimaru sensed the situation outside and also cried out rarely. In Tetsuya's team, Pidgeot took the first place because of age and strength, so he usually regarded himself as the eldest brother among the 3 Pokémons, carefully taking care of the other 2 Pokémons with a smile on his face. He also said to the sturdy chicken and Ishimaru, "Do you feel it? You will be so strong in the future, and only stronger. Chap Dangoro." The voices of the 2 Pokémons were full of longing and excitement. After a day of tiring training, Tetsuya took the 3 Pokémons back to the Pokémon Center and asked Miss Joy to reply to them. Taking advantage of this time, he finally had a chance to breathe and rest. Sitting next to him were several trainers in the same state as him. Real trainers don't have the imagined easy life. Please invest, collect, recommend, and vote for the monthly ticket. Whatever you want! Exclamation mark. Thanks to bookfriend 151,224,081,531,999 for the reward of 100 Kidian coins. Chapter 74 Additional missions and battle training. Except for a few parts of the travel time that can be considered relaxed and enjoyable, most trainers and elves are in boring training in fierce battles. A few people smiled at each other, and everything was self-explanatory. Beep Tetsuya's watch reminder sounded, and he was also startled. This couldn't be a reminder from Miss Joy, he just sat down. Who had sent him a message? With curiosity, Tetsuya clicked on the watch and began to read the message. After a while, he looked up with understanding. The message was sent by Dr. Yamanashi. The full text was too long. Anyway, the general meaning was to let Tetsuya go to an aristocratic school next to Cerulean City as a breeder, to temporarily teach the lower grade children. He also asked about the fact that he actually didn't have a breeder certificate. Dr. Yamanashi waved his hand and said that under his guarantee, he didn't need this thing at all. During the week of communication on the ship, Dr. Yamanashi recognized Tetsuya's ability and learning attitude very much. After learning about this in the communication with Dr. Oak, he strongly recommended Tetsuya. Professor Oak certainly knew the character of his assistant and close friend. After a brief understanding of Tetsuya's information, he readily agreed. Although Tetsuya didn't know the specific process, and even Dr. Yamanashi's description was a bit understated, he also knew that this represented Dr. Yamanashi's care for him. Otherwise, with Dr. Oak's reputation, once he released that he needed a breeder to do something, it was no exaggeration to say that 99% of people were willing to help. Even some low-level breeders were not qualified to help. After sincerely expressing his gratitude to Dr. Yamanashi, Tetsuya knew that he would be even busier, because he had to make a good enough teaching plan to face this task. As for whether there is a reward, it is completely free of charge. How can you charge for teaching children? They are the flowers and future of the Alliance. Is he such a person? He talked with several trainers from Synopsis and other regions next to him, and shared their travel stories, and gained some knowledge. It has to be said that the customs and habits of each region are so different that it is no wonder that many trainers are obsessed with exploring various regions in the world. There are many places that you will only know their magic when you really come into contact with them. For example, before, they only knew that the Sinnoh region was divided into two parts by the Shyangguan mountain, and he also knew that the shape and color of the body of the shellless sea slugs can easily change according to the different habitat environments. Shellless sea slugs and sea slugs will have different forms due to regional isolation. The ones on the east side of the mountain are blue, while the ones on the west side are pink. However, because the regions are too far apart, Zay has not witnessed this strange situation with his own eyes. A trainer from Sinnoh was very enthusiastic to show his own Pokémon to several other trainers including Zay, 4 different forms of shellless sea slugs and sea slugs. In his words, he has no special hobbies for other Pokémon, but he loves them. When saying this, looking at the interaction between one person and 4 Pokémon, and the intimacy in the eyes of both parties, I really have to sigh that, because of the appearance of Pokémon, this world has too many wonderful relationships. The trainer from Hone also showed them the unique scenery of his hometown, the submerged island. Watching the video he shared, one can only marvel at the magnificence of nature. Time passed by minute, and the trainers who shared interesting stories left one after another with their recovered Pokémons, and soon it was Tetsuya's turn. He said hello to the remaining trainers, saying that he would continue to communicate next time, and then took the 3 little ones back to his room. He completed the evening feeding task as usual, and as the Pokémons fell into rest, Tetsuya continued to learn. Trainers, except for their own families and Pokémons who are not family, but better than family, are all like this, lonely, but occasionally sociable. Very few trainers have teammates who are trustworthy enough to entrust everything to go on adventures together, such as some combinations specializing in doubles. The lights in the room are still on, giving people an illusion that they have never been extinguished. Strong chicken, use the fire fist on its torso. Chap. Along with the voices of one person and one pet, the Pokémon on the opposite side soon let out a wail. Ha ha ha. Tebet Scyther, known as the Insect Warrior and Insect Ninja, has an extremely strong willpower. He did not lose his fighting ability even under the blow of the fire fist that restrained him. He endured the pain and slashed out with 1 and 2 consecutive attacks. He didn't know why the strange looking elf opposite him, whom he had never seen in the forest, was so agile that he could dodge even the consecutive slashes that he was most proud of. After trying twice, his rich hunting experience made him judge that this battle was likely to be dangerous. But the pride in his bones supported him, prompting him to attack the opponent again and again. In a flash of lightning, the shadow clone split the tile, and 2 consecutive attacks. The combos that ordinary elves could not react to were used one after another, but the damage to the opponent was minimal. The opponent's speed was getting faster and faster, making his attacks aimed at the vital points fall into the air. Brachichi calmly used the lightning fist and the fire fist to block the 2 consecutive attacks, and then the farmer's 2 of the 3 punches landed on Scyther. Scyther's old and broken body could not withstand such a blow, and it lost its ability to fight, but its body was still supported by itself, and did not fall to the ground. ZHE also shook his head with regret. It's not that this Scyther was killed by Brachichi. There are still certain rules for the battles between Pokémon in this world. Now it just lost its ability to fight. If it continues to attack, it may cause the death of the Pokémon, but few trainers will choose to do so. As for the life and death duel of Pokémon in nature, they will never interfere. This is an iron law that has developed over countless years. He mainly regretted the potential of this Scyther. From its life as a Pokémon alone, its physical condition and combat experience, it can be estimated that this Scyther was probably driven out of the tribe because it failed to compete for the leader, similar to the old wolf in the previous life. After years of tempering, its mastery of skills can be said to be perfect, including all kinds of on-the-spot reactions. It can be seen that it is at least several blocks ahead of Strong Chicken. There were several times in the battle when ZHE found that it had read ahead of Strong Chicken's attacks, but he was completely unable to dodge due to his body. Strong Chicken defeated it only by relying on its own acceleration characteristics, and was even forced to make many unnecessary mistakes by the opponent's sophisticated attacks in the battle. After thinking for a while, ZHE moved the Scyther to the side. Please invest, collect, recommend, and vote for me. I ask for anything. Thanks to Wissamoon for the 100 starting coins. Thanks to Duan Muea for the 1500 starting coins. Thanks to Cheng Fengikwa for the 2000 starting coins. Chapter 75 Making a request. After simply spraying some medicine on Scyther, he told Strong Chicken to watch him. Tetsuya asked Pidgeot and Ishiganko to keep alert, and then began to prepare lunch for today. There was no other way. He was not a humanoid Jigglypuff. Spraying some medicine in the wild was already a good way to deal with it. Most wild Pokémon who lost their combat ability in the wild would die. He was being merciful. This was why he had always wanted a Pokémon that could perform all-around recovery moves such as healing waves or green grass fields. Even as long as the qualifications were decent, he would not force it to be above the king level. If you want to survive in the wild for a long time, endurance is an indispensable part. If the support time is too short, the benefits will be reduced, and more importantly, life safety cannot be guaranteed. For example, he now has to go back to the town almost every half a day to restore the status of 3 Pokémons, which greatly reduces his efficiency. Unfortunately, there are too few all-around recovery skills, and the difficulty of understanding is very high. In addition, there are not many Pokémons that can learn them. It is even more difficult to cultivate a Pokémon with good qualifications to play the role of endurance. Otherwise, it would not have been so long that the Joy family would have almost monopolized all the related markets. It is said that the Joy family has a secret method that allows the Pokémon of the Chansey series to quickly comprehend the skills of Healing Wave, Life Drop, and Healing Wish, but no one has ever confirmed this. Tetsuya was preparing lunch while constantly thinking about the problem of the nurse in his team. It is strange to say that most Pokémon that can master the water type recovery skill of Life Drop are psychic type or specialized Pokémon like Doll and Chansey. Among the water type Pokémon, only the normal state of Sun Coral, Milotic, and Dragonite, Lapras, can learn this skill. Unfortunately, it is unlikely that Tetsuya can get any of the 3. First of all, Sun Coral will pass. Apart from the advantage of being able to learn Life Drop, it has too many shortcomings in other aspects. Sun Coral that can learn Life Drop can be said to be a dream. As for Milotic, although he knew that Uchiha was probably evolved through the concept of beauty or beautiful scales, he was a little confused about the former. The latter is basically in a state of monopoly by the Glass Gym, and the other party directly stated that it has purchased a large number of them. Many people are curious about why the Glass Gym wants such useless and rare scales. A small number of people secretly collect them and do not sell them. They think there must be something special in them and study them crazily. Zaire knows it well, but he can't say it out loud. It's easy to get into trouble because of empty words. It's impossible to grab it, and the probability of high quality individuals like Ugly and Magikarp is too low, so he can only pass it. Lapras is very good in all senses. Its attack range, qualifications, and strength are all excellent. At the same time, due to its gentle personality, it is also praised as the first choice of sea riding Pokémon for all trainers on the forum. Unfortunately, it is on the verge of extinction due to a large number of illegal captures. Now it is a Pokémon that the Alliance strictly prohibits from breeding because it needs protection. It is said that the protection and ban penalties in the Alola region are particularly strong, and I don't know what will happen in the end. Alas, Tetsuya aside, in the end, the best choice is still a grass-type Pokémon, which is why he chose Leaf Stone. Pokémon in Kanto and nearby areas, such as Bulbasaur, Grasswalker, and Eggman, Bushigan, Akon, and even Creeper, Paras, Squirtle, and Snaker, may all learn the green grass field skill. Compared to the other skills of overall recovery, which only a few Pokémon can learn, this is simply too many choices. After feeding Pidgeot and Stoneball, he took the lunch of strong chicken and another spare Pokémon rice bowl with a few energy cubes, and said to Scyther beside him, "If you wake up, you should eat some too." Scyther slowly opened his eyes. It felt that the human in front of it was not too hostile. Strong Chicken also took the rice bowl from Tetsuya's hand and handed one of them to Scyther naturally. Just kidding. Although it is a little young and lacks practical experience, it is not so ignorant that it can't even sense whether the Pokémon has awakened. Its trainer had also discovered it a long time ago, but since there was no movement, it didn't need to do anything. It also admired the old warrior in front of it. It might be stronger in terms of hard power, and it was completely defeated by the other party in every detail. After hesitating for a while, Scyther took the food handed over by Strong Chicken. It's not that the aroma of this food attracted it. It's no exaggeration to say that it has lived for so many years and has eaten all kinds of fruits and food. It was mainly because it saw the covetous Pidgeot and Ishigaki next to it, and Strong Chicken also focused most of its attention on it. It knew that it would definitely not be able to leave. It might as well see what this human is going to do, and it wouldn't be too much to have a meal for itself. Putting the rice bowl on the ground, using its sickle to pick up an energy cube and put it in its mouth, Scyther narrowed its eyes. It was a familiar taste. This was the trophy I got from killing a trainer with my tribe members. I tasted it in batches for a long time. Unfortunately, there were not many trainers with this thing. I never got it. After hunting with my tribe several times, Zaire held his lunch and kept a safe distance. He asked Scyther loudly while eating, "Scyther, are you interested in teaching me the fighting skills of Brachiochido? You have to be so direct with Pokémon. Beating around the bush is useless." This is one of the reasons why he likes Pokémon. Brachiochido, who is this? Scyther was confused. Brachiochido responded in a busy schedule. "It was me." Scyther nodded in understanding. It turned out that this guy was called Brachiochido. What was a chicken? There was a lot of confusion in his little head, but it did not affect his eating. "You agreed? Great." Zay was very surprised that the flying mantis on the other side agreed so quickly and readily, and he hadn't even continued to persuade him. "Well, I'll come here every other day when the sun passes over the treetops. You teach Lysaon Chicken. I'll cover the meals at this time, and when the sun sets." Blinking his eyes, the flying mantis was about to express his dissatisfaction. "When did I agree to you? It's not true, okay? Don't act on your own, and don't think there are three of them." Hearing Zay's next words, he immediately changed his attitude. "Please invest, collect, recommend, and vote for me. I want anything!" Exclamation mark. Thanks to Mijk for the 100 starting coins. PS. Then I calculated that I probably still owe about 7,000 to 8,000 words. I'll make up for it when I'm done with this busy period. By the way, should I write about Dragonite or Laplace? I personally prefer Dragonite, but considering the word count, I decided to choose both. Funny. You may not believe this, but my computer ran out of power and shut down automatically. I didn't save the afternoon update. Damn it. I'm coding now. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.